did roll and picked up everybody.
All right. We'll start again. We did call the roll. I think we have everybody all the commissioners who were on Zoom. So for tonight's agenda, we have a discussion of the proposed minutes policy, which was distributed at our last meeting and discussed at our board gathering. Where they're going to have staff presentations, very hardworking staff who I hope everyone appreciates all the work that they've done, but we'll have presentations from Dan Doyle, Sherry Cassone, Morgan Schroeder, Liz Durkee, and Laura Silver. And then we'll finish up the evening with a modification review for 20 Union Court, which is an alteration DRI 674-M8. Let's start with a discussion of.
I gotta do my report. Or do
You can go first.
okay, I just want to get this over.
That's okay.
I want to talk about a couple things. We met today with DOT. We had the DOT MARPA meeting, which is our annual meeting. We are looking at Barnes Road and West Tisbury Road in Edgartown. 45-minute traffic delays in season on that one particular side of it. Mike has conducted traffic counts, and we're doing an analysis and programming to figure out what we're going to do. You've been at the airport in certain times during the summer. It's coming from West Tisbury, or it's pretty bad, and a range of things that they may decide. So we put the prerequisite for that. Lamppost litigation has now been officially scheduled for the last week in March, and that'll be in Edgartown. We did sign a contract to do the PRB in Oak Bluffs, permeable reactive barrier. We've done one that really worked well in Tisbury. This one, we're going to add stormwater and collect stormwater and stuff from roadways and send it through and hopefully treat it. This is an EPA grant that we got.
Where's that going to be?
Well, yeah, exactly. We have part of our thing is we call it micrositing, is to figure out exactly where the best place for it is. But it's going to be in that region.
Probably between Madeira's Cove and the sail camp.
Maybe, depending upon once we start to model it with test wells, we'll see where the nitrogen runs in a plume, not in the groundwater necessarily. So we want to see where it's going. And that's been our thesis all along. That these things are not put in right, they don't catch it. So we're going to look at that. We are, Sherry did, and Rachel Sorrentino, our consultant, did a series of presentations this week on our water quality plans by basin. We did Chilmark Pond, Squibnocket Pond, Menemsha Pond, and Tisbury Great. I have that right. And those projects, it's been a year. The key is that I think you need to remember is we're looking at cleaning it up. We're not looking how many reports have been done. We're documented again and again and again that they're dirty. We know they're dirty. What are we going to do about it? And that's what these reports are. Sherry's going to do a presentation on something else, but I thought the meetings that I attended went very well. The Zoom policy, as I was telling Doug, is expiring in March of this year. The legislature is looking at it, and the drafts that I got are looking at that there will be no justice. That all the meetings will have to have a in-person component, and we'll have to have a quorum in the room in person with the chair attending. I don't know if that's going to pass or if LUPC is going to be affected, but I'll give you more information as I get it. Finally, we did get our peer review for Green Villa. Green Villa is scheduled Monday. I think Monday LUPC. Yeah. We then had a meeting between the peer and the applicant so that the applicant understood exactly what the issues raised by our peer. It's two engineering firms. And then the applicant today came back with responses to all the things that the peer raised. That'll go out to you tomorrow. I would suggest the traffic was a big issue, that everybody who's gonna attend LUPC read it. And, because I think the traffic was one of the big issues when we did the first one. Peter, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Nope, that's good. The initial traffic study, that we got, from the applicant, I believe was 836 pages long.
Something like that.
It's dense. Make sure that you get the high points, and spend time with ours, well, to make sure you have a grasp of what those issues are. So, first item on the agenda is a discussion of the proposed minutes policy. Minutes, for those who participated in boards and public service and meetings require minutes, can and should be an accurate reflection of what occurred in the meeting, both in substance and intent. Doesn't mean it has to be verbatim, but it should include everything that occurred, nothing added, nothing subtracted. Where people use a word, for example, that will versus may, needs to be important. And if you notice that the written record in the minutes do not accurately reflect the intent and substance, that's where we hope that you have reviewed the minutes and will take time to submit edits for accuracy, reflect the contents of the meeting. Under the policy, just so that it's in the record, the draft minutes policy of January 16, 2025. First suggests that minutes will be distributed to commissioners by email within 14 days of the meeting. Commissioners will have 7 days to review the draft, make comments, changes. Any changes or comments will be forwarded to the executive director and administrator via email. If no comments or amendments are received by staff within 7 business days, the minutes will be deemed acceptable and approved. If amendments and changes are received, staff will revise draft minutes based on the comments and produce an amended version. Amended version will be sent to commissioners by email. Once again, time to review. This time it'll be 4 days, business days, to review the amended version. Minutes will be deemed approved after the 4-day period if no further changes or actions are requested. Any commissioner may request that minutes be discussed at a commission public meeting. Minutes must then be approved and signed by the commission chair within 30 days on the meeting they report on. These meetings can start at 6:30, and gosh knows we've had meetings that have gone on for 3 hours. I mean, the minutes can be long and dense. But what I don't want to do is just have them skimmed over and approved en masse. I want people to have time to actually be thoughtful about their review so that they become an accurate part of our record. So today, opening comments or thoughts. We are not going to be voting on these until, I think our bylaws say 10 days. That means a vote will occur at the meeting on the 6th. But if any commissioners have any comments or thoughts on the policies,
I have a procedural question, which is if they are amended, can they come out redlined or something so we know where the changes are?
That makes sense.
makes sense. Ben?
Yeah, so it sounds like there's a 7-day and then a 4-day window,
Business day.
business day window. If for whatever reason you couldn't make that 4-day window and you knew that, is it possible to request, and this might be language we would add, request an extension of that time, because the only next step would be ask for it to be on a public meeting if you had an issue that you couldn't address within the 4-day window or the 7-day window. Maybe somebody's traveling, there could be all kinds of circumstances.
Noted, we'll think about that. Okay. Adam, did I leave anything out?
I just want, at the second sentence in here, the commissioners will have 7 business days.
Yes.
To review it. Nope, other than that, you hit it.
Yeah.
So this sounds like we no longer will be going line by line here in a public meeting for this. this replaces that.
I felt like the public, you know, the last of the meeting, everybody wants to go through that line by line as quickly as we can. And, this would be a better way to do it.
Any questions for anybody on Zoom? Behind me? Okay. If you have any comments, make sure you get them back to, Adam, and or Lucy. Lucy's not here today, but get them to Adam and or Lucy before the next meeting.
This is only for minutes. We'll
Correct.
continue to do a written decisions the way we've been.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Written decisions will never be
Right.
done other than with, in front of commission.
Okay. All right. Next. Staff presentations. Adam, do you want to lead these?
Sure. We have 4 or 5 presentations. Dan Doyle's going to talk about wildfire mitigation.
Impact of
You're
life.
a wild guy.
That's right. We do have a lot of fire dependent speaking about here. All right, so thanks, Adam. And at risk of, you know, repeating myself a little bit, I might because we have some new commissioner faces and also, you know, more members of the public as well. But I'm gonna try to keep this brief because we have a number of good planning updates on my heels. Sorry, Rose, I have my back too, but I will, you know, just share some visuals to, you know, go along. Here we go. Okay. You know, this issue is not kind of the chronic issue that we view coastal flooding, which is more routine. But this is rather an issue that we know we have exposure to. It impacts different corners of the country. We're on the backside of 2 months of drought in October and November across the Commonwealth, where there were numerous, you know, wildfires. Fortunately, none that escalated too bad in different corners of the state, but something that we have been paying attention to, and even more so in the last few years, because we've had some professionals come in and, you know, do some formal modeling for us. These are the 3 sort of, you know, big drivers as far as understanding how fire behaves. I think, as we all know, not all fuels are created, right? We have hardwoods, we've got our conifers. They each burn at different intensities. Some are more flammable than others. We have scrub oak. You know, we have a range of different fuels out here. Fortunately, we don't have too much of the topography that other parts of the country contend with. But the weather, you know, is an area that that's clearly out of our control. And then, of course, we have a hand in this as well, and how we situate ourselves to try to be, you know, most prepared in the event this ever did take place. This is just, you know, some of the insider baseball, you know, what went into the model. We wanted to have a rigorous model. We had a range across of stakeholders a few years ago who were part of the planning team and worked with our consultants, SWCA consultants, to help us understand what risk really look like here on the island. For us. What is our wildfire risk? And you can see I don't think it's a big surprise, certain swaths of the island are redder, representing extreme risk. Far more redder than others, you know, up island, you see more of that. The outwash plain, where the sandy soils dry at a much quicker, you know, rate, that also contributes to, you know, much drier conditions as well. And you can see a lot of that down near the south shore in that direction, extending into the state forest. We sort of approached the recommendations and the mitigation work through this sort of these kind of tactics right here. One is, how can we think about our natural lands? The other being, you know, some of our, how do we manage that, right? The other being some of the things we can do around our very own homes. And also the safe and effective wildfire response, positioning our firefighters to be able to respond. So this is really a community lift. I think that's the big thing the big message I want to send is it's all of these things to different degrees, right? They're all important when it comes to actually being prepared and trying to dial back our exposure. So when it comes to resilient landscapes, these are some of the conventional things that are done out here, some of which can converge with wildlife, as we were saying before, and fire dependent species. One of the reasons we like to use prescribed burn here on the island is because it promotes these fire dependent species that are also globally, they're also rare. There's 30 species, at least in the state forest alone out here. The reason that habitat, sand-plain vegetation communities are so rare is because we've suppressed fires so much in the past, 80, 90, 100 years that we don't allow those natural cycles to occur the way they used to. And we've also certainly developed a lot of those areas as well, and they're now, reflect our properties rather than the natural world they once were. I think as we're thinking about what we can do in our own backyards, this concept of defensible zones, and talking to our neighbors about how we can all reduce the neighborhood risk are, certainly relevant. Some homeowners associations are trying to act these, covenants that say you have to have a cedar, a shake roof. And that's some of the quickest material that'll go up if there were ever an ember storm. So just those overall building materials and understanding the mechanisms for those changes. Is it 100% vote? Is it a 75% vote? I know there's some active people involved in some of those homeowners associations, and we have over 45 of them on the island. We have a lot of them. So those are really kind of a pressure point that we can use to do some of this work in organizations. These are those zones, just to simplify things for a moment, the first zone up to 30 feet. That's what's typically going to, get to your house as the fire approaches. And then there's additional things you can do, for the first 30 feet. They're really important. That's where the eaves are. That's where a lot of tree litter going up under decks is often found. So even while we're wondering, are we doing enough at the municipal level or conservation land level? It's good to know you can turn inward and do something on your own. These are just some items that, just to make it a little more manageable and cost effective, that people can understand can be done. It doesn't have to completely break the bank. And then we also try to set it up, in something over time, so it doesn't have to feel overwhelming. And this, of course, is some things that people already do as well.
Recording in progress.
Whoops,
Recording
sorry.
in progress. Recording in progress.
I don't know what just
Recording
happened.
in progress.
Sorry, I just take it upstairs. I gotta get on, but.
It's an example, in California, of a home that was, standing amongst ashes, rubble, and ruins. It was really an island on its own. And you could see that defensible zone, primarily a lot of concrete, very limited landscaping, other than planters. A lot of fire resistant materials used. This was still standing. It did help that there was the neighboring lot had been scraped and demoed a few weeks before, but it was a neighborhood full of houses, right? I mean, and they don't have them anymore. So this really can make a difference when we think about, the materials that we construct our homes with. Our fire chiefs, when I talk to them and just look for updates,
Dan, I have a quick question, because in some of the historic districts, they like bake. Is that something, are any of our historic districts? I mean, I know Vineyard Haven has burned down once or twice. But do we try to share this so that,
Well, I mean, I think that just to make, quickly respond, that heat map showing the risk, I think is important, right? And if you happen to be in close proximity to an orange or a red zone, you're at greater risk than if you're maybe in a downtown area that might be greener or lower risk, right? So
okay?
I think you can take that into consideration. But it's a model, right? So it comes with.
Yeah, I just wondered basically whether we were sharing this widely enough so that that places that might, towns where they might regulate what people are doing, having understands of it in response to the
Yeah,
wildfire
and
risk.
at the end of this, we have Morgan here, our vision fellow, who's been focused on really publicizing a lot of the climate action planning work that's taken place. And she's a real asset to us, and she's gonna be helping with some of the publicity work around, getting these actions out there, boosting that understanding and education as well. But a lot of these things you see right up here, this is really all about access to water, right? Our up island towns and many parts of Edgartown, and even parts of Tisbury, right? And they don't have hydrants. And it is not cheap to install a water tank with a well, or even a water tank to a dry hydrant. It's 6 figures, easy. So some of the things that West Tisbury and Chilmark are experimenting with are this turbo draft, where it gives you 150 foot of line, you can access, you can suddenly get to these, many more swimming pools than we did 20 years ago. You can get to some of these other water sources or some of these smaller kettle ponds, and access that water in some of the more remote areas.
How does that help with the state forest?
With this,
State
we
forest.
don't have much of a water supply in there. We really don't. We've talked to the state about trying to install, and they really don't want it. They've made that difficult.
And I know freshwater ponds. within the forest.
There's-
Are there ways to like use our wells? Can we put, 1/4-inch hose fitting that is able to draw out of our well system?
I've heard people talk about using hand pumps, but I don't know.
Well, not hand pumps, but something that like you can turn a switch and suction goes through that versus,
I don't know. That's a good
you
question.
know what I mean? Because we all have water on our property. It's just how do you access it?
All hookups to your pool for like a tanker truck to come up and drain that, right?
That's
So-
a requirement.
So that's a requirement now?
I think it's-
Yeah, all right, that's good.
There's a lot of training that the departments are trying to offer in collaboration with DCR. But, this is also kind of our real challenge here on the island. As we try to professionalize these services, we also don't want to burn out our limited volunteer rosters, right? I mean, that's really a difficulty that, our chiefs are trying to do the most they can with the limited resources and rosters they have, and they don't want to lose their ranks. So that's something that is absolutely a challenge. And then as far as responding to fires, these narrow roads, providing the trucks access, and also, you see these trenched roads, right? I mean, we have so many of those. That's not uncommon, these corridors. One vehicle can pass. Someone's evacuating, it's a very difficult predicament. And then these ladder fuels, we went to a Firewise training at people's homes. People do some beautiful landscaping or glading type of things where you can take those ladder fuels off up to 10, 12, 14 feet. And all of a sudden you wouldn't believe the view, that you're looking either into a forest or, down into a coastal pond. But this map attempts to show, and we have a story map that make this kind of interactive. This shows, look at all these roads that are so limited. They fan out all across our island. Our homes are really embedded in a lot of our forests, and this is response scenario.
I have a question. So my house specifically is on a special way, right? You can't touch that road. But that does create limited access for fire to come down it. So what takes precedence there? What takes priority in a sense of like the fire trucks being able to get down there or preserving the way? That's a question that kind of goes against some of our policies too. Again, building materials, well, some of those materials aren't going to fit the character of the island, whether they're firewise, right? So how do we balance that?
It's, I think through a lot of conversations, right? And talking about what those different elements are, like you said, because there is a tension sometimes.
Right.
You're completely right.
Dan, I look at that, a lot of those roads you're talking about are all grass. But I know Edgartown does, I don't know about other towns, they don't have the ability to pull water from the ponds. They haven't invested in the equipment necessary to do that. Do you have any insight on that, or?
Well, that's some of what this turbo draft is trying to do, is if you don't have to get right to the bank, I mean, the trucks need a secure foundation. They can't
Right.
just
They'll
ride
do
it.
it from swimming pools, but not from ponds.
You can draft from a pond. You can
I've
create hard.
Been
suction
told no.
Out of a, okay, at least Tisbury can, we can on our trucks.
You know, I think the challenge is to getting the trucks close enough, right? Because they just can't go anywhere because of how heavy they are. But that's what they're trying to adapt to, is like, how do we have water sources around the island without,
A sticker shock infrastructure project. How can we, use what we have a little better? And then this just gets to some of the stuff that we're gonna be, rolling out in a week or two. And there's some really really compelling videos that are really gonna help people understand how some of this fire behavior really works in relationship to a home and the materials that we're talking about and defensible zones, because we can see it on graphics and we can talk about it, but it's a little abstract. These are, I think, really powerful videos that, and Morgan knows how to make it splashy, and get people to click on it. So that's,
Are you done?
I'm pretty much wrapped up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a
Go ahead.
question. Is this slideshow gonna be on our website somewhere?
Yeah, we can get this posted, sure.
Yeah, I'd love to see the fire risk map and also the limited access road map. Those are two.
Ben?
Yeah, thanks. I spent the day today reading the fire mitigation plan. Just to familiarize myself and realized there's actually a few gaps still in our understanding. And so to that regard, the Climate Action Task Force on February 7th is going to host some fire experts. We're potentially going to get the DCR fire chief. I don't know if Dan, if you had a chance to reach out to
Yeah, we'll
him.
invite them.
Yeah, and then Chad Hansen, who's a West Coast fire ecologist, so that we can really understand how do we want to deal with this, because as Dan was talking about, the number one thing you do is immediately around the structures. That's where you have the most bang for your buck. Going out into the forest and trying to mitigate is a much more complicated and not very successful way to deal with it, because what we're learning, and there's a lot of studies now in the West Coast, but mature, healthy forests are the fire protecting, right? They're easier for a fire to move through open space, through grassland than dense forests. And so how we deal with our conservation land is going to be much different than how we deal with those defensible spaces around buildings. So I think, we still have a lot of work to do to understand how do we deploy the limited resources of the island to be protective against wildfire, and also understanding wildfire is a risk here, which is still luckily very low, but given climate change is due to increase. But how much it's going to increase and how do we protect against it? So if anybody's interested in, hearing some fire experts debate these topics, the February 7th Climate Task Force meeting will be interesting.
Awesome. Thank you for bringing that up. Ben.
Is that online or is that gonna be?
It'll be a Zoom meeting at 9:30 a.m. on a Friday.
Kathy? Kathy, hey, I see your hand. Your
I was just curious and asking Dan, how are fuel, in other words, the uncleared spots that we've got, particularly in the forest, how does that compare with other places? I mean, is it particularly high risk or
I
you
think
know,
it really
like,
depends on what sort of, as we have defoliation and die off from insects, some of those finer fuels, those canopy fuels from pitch pines, those are flammable. But those are also, not being entirely, they're not being neglected in the state forest. I mean, they're actively monitoring that
And trying to handle those, the larger trunks, those are very large concern for, and they actually have ecological value too. The trunks themselves. But we've done a lot of work on this. We really have. For years to get to a place where we have a report that we can turn to and say, these are action, they make sense for our community. And also, there have been some studies out west, but we have a lot of literature we've turned to for purposes of our report that were northeast centric. And they drew from actual fire behavior out here. And that's what I want to make sure that we focus on, where, we can elevate the awareness, I think, and the profile of the issue by what's happening out west. But I think when it comes to comparable, we want to look at what's been examined in this part of the southeastern Massachusetts.
And you did a fire study, that's what I wanted to ask you, 3 years ago with
And we got a FEMA grant to
the
do.
FEMA grant. We did a big study with all the fire chiefs, with experts from all over the Northeast. And what's that firm that actually did it to begin this process? And one of the things they did talk about was water. And that's what we talked about is how are we going to stage water? So that's a big issue. But I want to, between 2000 and 2010, there was 6 events per year annually of damage from storms and other kinds of climate change things, over $1 billion. So from 2000 to 2010, there's 6 a year. That rose to 12 between 10 and 20. Between 20 and 24, it's up to 18.
18 billion?
Just because I wouldn't. Yeah, over $1 billion of damage, and obviously inflation is bigger, but the risk may be low, but that doesn't mean it won't happen. And I'm not just talking about fire. I'm talking about. So what we're trying to do is go through these exercises, go through these discussions, so that when it happens, we have a plan of attack and plan to mitigate. Is that about?
Yeah, we want to give people things that have been vetted, that they feel confident,
Have the discussion now before we have to do it. And have a plan, with the fire chiefs. And the fire chiefs were part of that study that you did. When was that, 21?
Fire chiefs, a lot of ecologists, we had a good cross section.
So
About 3 years ago, right?
What was the last prescribed burn on the island?
that's recent.
There was one recently in Katama. In the state forest, it was maybe 2022 or 23. But in the past 15 years, they've applied that treatment to almost 900 acres in the state forest. So.
They do it in Tacoma on a regular basis, every
But
year.
in the state forest, do they do it like where all the dead wood is? I mean,
They have to mechanically treat the area first. You can't just go into any place that has a big accumulation of fuels. Right.
that's what concerns
Have to
me.
manage it. Yeah.
Because a lot of that dead wood's been there since Hurricane Bob. I mean,
There's certain
It's ready
zones
to
they
go.
couldn't go into.
yeah, it's scary.
There's a lot from
Bob
Sandy
is
too.
probably fairly well rotted. by
Well,
now.
San-
That's gonna burn quick
But
too.
that's good fuel. That's partly what I was asking too.
I think we have to be careful when we identify fuels. I would really, read the 21 report. pay attention to the updates because the type of fuel, the surface area, how long it's been on the ground, the moisture content, all of these things, the speed of the fire, all of these things play into how a fuel will react. Just, you have the fuel, but you need oxygen, right? So there's a lot of nuance to this, but I think the really important takeaways is if you want to protect your home, it's that first 6 feet that really matters. And that it diminishes as you get further out from it.
Where is the fire study? Where is it available for people to see? Is it on our website?
It's on our website, yeah.
Good.
Is the report on the website too?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, Sherry Casso, and she has visitors from Falmouth. Sherry, why don't you introduce you and your experts?
Sharon Casso, the Water Resource Planner. I will not be presenting, but we have a guest, Stephen Rafferty. He is the chairman of the Falmouth Water Quality Management Committee. And Amy Lowell, the Falmouth wastewater superintendent, is on Zoom to help out if there's any questions. He is going to give us an update on the Falmouth's proposed outfall pipe for their treatment plant in Falmouth Heights. And he's given a copy of the his presentation, so you can all take notes or follow along.
Welcome.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to be here and thank you all for giving me a little bit of time. This is a project that over in the Falmouth area, we've been working on for several years. Move from land-based discharge of our effluent into an ocean outfall, which will be sound. And we are getting to the point where in the next period of time, we're likely to prepare and file in our draft environmental impact statement. I thought now is a good time to walk in front of you how we got to where we got to, what we're working on right now. So that when you get a notice from the state that we've got an environmental, under the MEPA process, you know, like, what is this? I've never heard about it. So with that, the first slide shows you there's a bottle there, and that's what the effluent looks like. Falmouth has a tertiary treatment plant. We scrub out all of the nitrogen down to about 3 milligrams per liter. It's at that point organic nitrogen. It's not really bioavailable. Next. So we've been wrestling with this for a while. This is a map of Falmouth. All those green things that you look at, those are the watersheds. There's 14 of them that are nitrogen sensitive areas designated by the state's DEP over the last year. We've been struggling with what to do with the discharge since the 1970s. The only town that I've ever been aware of that put their wastewater plant at the highest spot, rather the lowest spot is Falmouth. It's 135 some odd feet above sea level. And since that plant has been built, the effluent from that plant has flowed towards Buzzards Bay and specifically West Falmouth Harbor. We upgraded the plant many years ago to the tertiary treatment level. So over the last several years, as we kept looking at other places, it's like we started looking at other locations within the town with town owners and whatnot. We looked at over 30 different locations for groundwater discharge. Inevitably, at any location we looked at, all we discovered is that groundwater would eventually flow into one of the estuaries, which we're trying to get rid of the nitrogen, and there's a little bit left over. So we came to the conclusion that perhaps our best solution was an outfall. And so in the summer of 2022 and 2023, we retained some folks from Winslow Oceanographic who had a very good hydrodynamic model of both Buzzards Bay and Vineyard Sound. And we looked at multiple locations where an outfall could go to.
I'm getting water.
One of the criteria we have, we need to get by the eelgrass. So we're considering directional drilling. The mixing energy in Buzzards Bay is a half or a third of what it is in Vineyard Sound. By the way, I will say this on board that I share this a lot forth over whether where we're looking is Vineyard Sound or Nantucket Sound. I don't want to get into that geographic discussion today.
Could you explain to me what you mean by an outfall?
A pipe that goes out into the water.
Ah,
way out into the water.
Yeah, I was to say, I think the city of Cannes did that into the Mediterranean at one point.
So currently, most communities, on the Cape discharge their wastewater effluent to a leaching field or
Okay.
source, and it goes in the ground, and then it travels in the ground someplace, and people
Right.
keep track of that. This would be a case of everything from the wastewater plant will go down a pipe and then go certain distance offshore, and I'll show you how we got to that, the decision of
Are
where.
you allowed to mix watershed?
We don't have, we have one watershed. Falmouth is a single watershed.
Falmouth is oh, because I thought with that map you had before you were multiple watersheds.
We have, like, all of the, it's all the Sagamore lens.
Okay,
Okay, so there's a single body of water.
right.
It's divvied up into different watersheds in the town based upon how water flows out of that lens and into the Coonamessett and other streams.
The reason I ask is because in Edgartown, we're wrestling with this. We've been told by the state, we have to send, if we sewer an area of the town, we have to send the water back to that area where it is sewered.
Edgartown needs to stay in Edgartown. I'm just.
No, but from our, in other words, from our wastewater plant,
Yeah,
we sewer a new part of the town, it's in the Senja watershed.
yeah.
We have to send the water that comes in from there back to the Senja watershed. We can't,
Like, yeah,
after purification, we can't discharge it where we discharge the existing water.
that DEP directive is news to me. I'm not aware of how they got to that field. In our case, we've had a wastewater plant sitting up top of the hill, and we've been pumping from Woods Hole and from Barrow Vista and other places up to that treatment plant, and then that discharge goes out to Falmouth Harbor right now.
So even though might be considered, I guess it's Vineyard Sound there, down by Woods Hole, it still can be discharged into Buzzards Bay.
Yes, we've actually gone through, one of the out of my slides, but we have had a determination. What we're doing does not get into the Interbasin Transfer Act or crossing the water boundaries. Okay. So we looked at multiple locations in Buzzards Bay, we looked at multiple locations in Vineyard Sound. Vineyard Sound's got much greater mixing energy. One of the key things is the eelgrass and the resources. So I sort of just covered a little bit of this, but on the Vineyard Sound, or I'll say Sound side, on the Sound side, we determined that the outfall needed to be a minimum of 2,000 feet offshore to get 1,000 to 1 dispersion values. The eelgrass is such. I'm gonna go to the next slide. Okay. So. For those of you that know Falmouth, you're looking at basically Falmouth Inner Harbor and Falmouth Heights. And the yellow that you see on there, that is the eelgrass. The speckled stuff. So we can't discharge into eelgrass. We discovered that at 20 foot of depth, there's virtually no eelgrass. So we're right now looking at going not 2,000 feet offshore, but closer to 2,600 feet offshore. And to help you out here a little bit, we looked at two different things. We looked at whether or not the outfall got 2 MGD to flow. The treatment plant currently is permitted for around 700,000. You see 500 to 600,000 usually. Areas we want to sewer so far, 1.7. The reason we looked initially at 2 MGD is 135 feet of energy we can get out by gravity. We don't have to pump it, it goes downhill and gets out. We looked at 4 MGD because of if we expanded the areas that we want to sewer now, which has some benefit to reduce us low to 7,000 or 8,000 IA systems that we're going to have to put in if we stick around to 2 MGD. Some balancing back and forth of adding the sewer area bigger. So we looked at both 2 MGD and 4 MGDs.
Million gallons a day.
Millions of gallons a day going out, yep. If you look at the 2 MGD one, you'll see lots. And that's because at 2,600 feet offshore and at 2 MGD and with a wastewater effluent that's 3 or better, we get 1,000 to 1 dilution within 300 feet of the outfall. The grid we're using to model hydrodynamics is 300 feet by 300 feet, squares. And it never breaks to the surface. It gets the 1,000 to 1 well below the surface. The 4MGD1, as you can see, has a few dots on it, none of which blow back on the shore or travel very far. I'm assuming that everybody in this room at one time or another has been in a boat on the Sound and knows that the flow goes east to west and east to west and east changes in the middle of the day. Pretty strong current. So being the distance offshore, there's no risk of it getting back onto our shore or into our estuaries. Okay. I'll go to the next slide. Oh, here's where we're at. One of the big questions we wanted to get answered was, if instead of putting the water back on the ground and we put it into an outfall, are we draining our water supply down such that we won't have any water? To answer that question, we hired the USGS. They have been utilized in their model of the Saginaw lens. They have provided us a draft report on that we reviewed with water resource folks from the state. At 2MGD, we show no impact on the lens at the time. It's being peered USGS, so we expect late spring or early summer, we will have a definitive report to publish and distribute to everybody with all the pictures and the graphs and the information in it. The second item that has been sort of key for us is the presumption that we can directionally drill. For those of you that don't know what directionally drilling is, it's you set up a piece of equipment. Some of your electric cables are getting over here these days because they're sent up over and down to do this. They send a 3-inch pilot out, and they can control it. They can go down 2,000. They can get out 2,600 feet, and then where it comes to the surface, they then cut another boring head on it. They pull it back and remove the soil while they're pulling the actual outfall pipe back. It's called directional drilling. So you don't impact eelgrass. It's not a cut and cover method at all. We believe, based upon geological information, that the area off the heights is all sands and gravels, which is ideal for directional drilling. But to prove that, we wanted to take borings at 500-foot intervals out to where we want to go. We have got a permit from the Army Corps of Engineers to do that work. We have contracted with a firm down in Delaware, and mid to end of February, you will see a jackup barge off of Falmouth Heights. If you're taking the ferry back and over to your left and see it, it'll be there for a couple of weeks. It's going to go down about 100 feet. And that information will help out to inform us on either the scale of the directional drilling, in other words, the strength of the equipment needed, or I think this is very low probability that it turns out there's this massive pile of rock sitting right off of Falmouth Heights, which would be a geological abnormality. Actually, on the Zoom call is a person on my committee named Jonathan Kaufman, who is he's retired at this point, but he's quite knowledgeable about geology, and he's pretty confident that we won't have trouble. Anyways, the other thing is there's a lot of environmental data collection that goes on with this. We've had a buoy sitting at the site now for 2 years collecting baseline data off of the other buoys out there. But Amy has done an excellent job working with our consultants of lining up all sorts of regulators. The state has taken the lead on this. If you need to know the list of all those agencies, I'll have to go to Amy, but fisheries, we're looking at anti-degradation policies, we're looking at a whole range of things, and nothing yet has been like, oh my, this is crazy. Everything we're looking at is juggling. One of the things, for example, under anti-degradation is, consider this. As we put the sewers into those South Coast estuaries, we're taking the nitrogen out that's going into those estuaries. We're sending it to the treatment plant, and we're reducing it from, 35 or 65 milligrams per liter that you're seeing in the septic system down to 3. So we're reducing the outflow of nitrogen to the sound. We're reducing the outflow of other things to the sound by taking it up and treating it and then getting back to the outflow. So we are in the second year of a baseline monitoring program, which is required. And we're working on the document you have in front of you is going to say, we expect to submit the draft environmental report this summer, but I'm presuming you're going to put this on your webpage. Amy corrected me earlier today that right now, we're more likely to have it done this year, not by this summer, but Amy's great and they'll get done by this summer. It's like, you know, that's our goal. She doesn't like to promise something, she will deliver.
You're looking at doing 2 million gallons a day? Or 3 million?
So we've done the dispersion. I'm not gonna try to evade your, I'm gonna give you a little longer. We did the dispersion studies at 2 and 4.
Right,
We concluded it could be at 2, we can't even see it.
right.
We could go up to 4 and still be good. Okay, one of the things that we're currently doing when we file the EIS is we're looking right now. Right now, we say 1.7 is what we think our maximum flow is for the areas that we've currently identified for sewers or that are already sewered. By gravity, we can get from the treatment plant out to the outfall and push 2 out. We can add a pump to that in the next 20, 30, 40 years if we want to sewer some other areas. So we're taking a hard look at the right number, not a number just because we can flow downhill by gravity.
Right.
Which is a little bit higher than what we've already planned on for sewers because we're getting a lot of push. I touched on this. We've looked at all 14 estuaries under what the DEP through their watershed planning process calls your default back. After 5 years, you're not making your targets on your watershed plans. You have to then show how you're going to do it using only IAs and sewers. So we've actually, for every one of our watersheds, looked at on the areas we currently say we're going to sewer. Then how many IAs do we have to put in? We're well over 7,000 parcels that will require innovative alternatives in order to meet our nitrogen reduction inside those estuaries.
And that's more expensive than sewering those 7,000 parcels. Is it? I guess I should have put it in terms of a question.
So,
Assume it would be.
well, the answer is a little bit complicated. I'm going to try to do this as simple as I can. First off, when things get sewered, the town puts 70% of the cost back as a betterment to the homeowner.
Right,
Town picks up the other 30%. The town pays for things like force mains. As a homeowner, you get 20 years to pay off that betterment as an add-on to your tax.
right.
Okay? That as you move into areas where the homes are further apart, cost per home will vary.
Yep.
We did our first bid, our first numbers was below 20,000 because we were so close together. The community, the area we're looking at right now, the number is going to be closer to 26,000 for each homeowner, plus the cost to connect from where the sewers left off.
Yeah.
So let's just say for conversation, it's 30 to 35,000. All right, to the homeowner's cost. Okay, for doing that, you're removing so many pounds of nitrogen. Now, to get the same number of pounds of nitrogen removed, you have to put in 2 IA systems. Okay,
And IA is what, about 50 now?
any place between 30 and 50, depending upon what you've currently got.
Yep.
Mr. Smith over here, I think, is selling his units for the $25,000 range.
Yeah, I didn't hear the conversation or discussion about using a leaching field versus an outfall. Why did you guys choose outfall versus a leaching field? Is it leaching field possible in Falmouth instead of
Groundwater
keeping it on,
groundwater
keeping it on
discharge.
land versus putting it back?
If
in
we,
the
I'll come back to one of the earlier slides. I'll circle back at the end.
Okay.
The problem is, we've got one site that we're currently using.
Okay.
We look at 30 other sites and for various reasons, all those sites have issues with them.
Okay.
One of the best locations we have is in one of our toughest estuaries. And if we take water back to, I can't read your tag here, Kate, back to Kate's concern, to the extent we start taking water out of certain other watersheds, treat it there and then bring that back into one watershed and that load coming back there such that we can't get to the TMDL.
Yeah.
So we kept doing this, right? And we'd be like, we got stuck.
Yeah.
And we have a huge current out there. So it begged us to look at it.
One second, we have questions from Jeff and then Brian.
Yeah.
Follow up in a similar area and also the environmental impact. Is there a difference in the what comes out of a sewer plant if it goes straight into an outfall pipe? Nitrogen's lower, but are things still in it? Water that would have been taken out by a leach field, the percolation of metals or plastics or environmental concerns along those lines?
Some. And others are a little unclear, okay? We are currently, as part of our program, we have been gathering detailed information on a wide range of compounds to know the concentration in the sound right now. And we've been sampling our effluent as well, looking at the concentration of all those compounds. That all feeds back into the anti-degradation policy, okay? Some things like, some of the metals will eventually transport through the soil, but not all the metals. Okay, depends on the soil that you have, whether it's, iron-rich soil already or there's manganese in it, or not, that affects it. But we don't believe that we're going from utilizing ground-based, groundwater discharge permits. We don't believe that we're going in the wrong direction in terms of environmental management and reducing the risk to the environment and everything we've looked at.
So it's possible to perhaps capture those even using an outfall pipe? If
Yeah,
that
we've
proved
not
to be-
considered adding additional treatment beyond the tertiary treatment we have. And the values we're getting back on the effluent, a lot of times the quality of the effluent, I won't say everything. For example, the wastewater effluent has got a higher iron concentration than the Vineyard Sound cell. That's because our water goes through cast iron pipes and ductile iron pipes. But for other metals, what's coming out of the wastewater plant is lower than what we're measuring in the sound.
Brian?
Kind of building on what Jeff was asking about. So you said the outfall pipe's gonna come into the middle of the sound, and it's gonna go either east or west, which won't affect the vineyard, won't affect Falmouth, but and I don't care about Nantucket.
We won't put that in the minutes.
Yeah, but could effectively have an impact on Cuttyhunk, which is something that we do have a responsibility.
A long way away.
So first off, we're not in the middle of the sound. We're 2,600 feet off the shore.
But
of Falmouth.
if the tide's running that way, it's gonna go towards the Elizabeth Islands.
Okay, so can we backtrack a couple of slides?
Sure.
Okay, stop. So you've got this in front of you,
Yeah. bring it up.
but one of the bigger triggers after you look at the eelgrass is a requirement that wastewater discharges have to be diluted down to 1 because of shellfish.
Mhm.
Okay, so to the extent that you can look at 1,000-to-1 dilution of that 3 milligrams per liter, that puts you at 3 micrograms per liter, right? Which you can't measure. I'll just say that to you. You can't measure it. You can hypothetically indicate.
Well,
Because the
you can't measure it, but can you measure it every day till the end of time?
Well, we can't measure down to 3 micrograms. So unless we would go right on top of the outfall where the blue dot is, you can't find it. You can't find, it doesn't get to Cuttyhunk,
Okay,
okay? It doesn't get over to here. It doesn't, and even for those who are listening from Nantucket, it doesn't get to Nantucket. Yeah, it's a very, very small area where, that because I don't have the number in front of me, but it's hundreds and hundreds of millions of gallons of water flowing through there.
Greg?
Oh,
Yeah, will the outfall be marked, like if
yes,
fishermen
Yes.
are dragging through
Yes.
there?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so there's
Yeah, we-
obviously.
We're gonna have another round with the Army Corps of Engineers, and they will identify navigation, signals.
And then, oh, sorry,
Well,
just
not-
one last question is, do we know, is it warmer water hitting the water? Like, what's the temperature of the water actually coming out of the outflow?
I should know the answer to that.
It's gonna be ground.
I would think.
I mean, if it's ground temperature, but I don't know if it's heated or something in the wastewater
When you
plant.
go under a hundred.
But we're back to, the dispersion.
55 degrees.
Yeah, within 300 feet.
Yeah.
Whatever the temperature gradient is, difference coming in, you won't ever be able to see it again. You'll be back.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean,
The pollution rate's that.
and if we ultimately decide we're gonna go with 2.5 or 2.4 or 2.6 for our permanent flow, a little bit higher than the 2 there. Again, the Dodge will rerun it at that flow, but we know at 4, we're not having an impact already, so we will do all of that.
Okay, and then,
Yeah, I have to say, I feel like we're grilling you and that's not what we're trying to do.
I'm fine.
Okay,
I'm
good.
fine.
I am concerned about whether this does, to the point that Greg has touched on, create sort of a dead area because of the dilution. And I'm curious as to how you study for that.
The monitoring will go ongoing. I will tell you this. I spent 32 years working for an engineering firm that grew to be fairly large. I spent a fair portion of my career on the MWRA's plant at Deer Island. To the extent I've actually been 8 miles out to sea underground more than once. Okay, the MWRA measures water quality. They measure nitrogen concentrations annually at their outfall location and report on it. It's not a dead zone. It's not a dead zone. And they're running, averaging 240 to 250 million gallons a day now. And they don't have the same mixing energy that we get in the Vineyard Sound.
Could you tell us what MWR?
Massachusetts Water Resource Authority, they provide wastewater to 45 communities, including Boston and the surrounding areas.
They have an outfall pipe. that you put out.
It goes 8 miles off of Deer Island on the North Shore. And when that pipe went in, the Cape Towns and I believe the towns on the Vineyard and others got their legislatures to enact something called the Ocean Sanctuaries Act that said you cannot put any outfalls in between New Bedford and Gloucester. That got amended 5 years ago to allow highly treated effluent, not just secondary. Boston is combined sewer. If the effluent is highly variable, consistently, like I said, we're consistently at 3 and 3. This is pretty clean water.
I'm just trying to understand, if this is a viable solution for some of the wastewater treatment issues we have here. And I just don't know if there's an economy of scale that you have in our towns, our down island towns would not have. Yeah, what's the population of the summertime population of Falmouth, which is where you're getting an awful lot of your effluent?
So as a person who retired after 32 years of hard engineering and took over as the town's water superintendent, just because I don't know how to sit still, I can tell you right now, there's probably 20 or 25,000 people in Falmouth based on water consumption. Most summer days, we are at least over 90, and on the weekends, 110 to 120. Okay?
Comparable to here, but ours is really spread out. I mean,
So to
it would
answer,
only be in the down island towns where it makes economic sense. I'm just trying to understand if there's sufficient economy for us to do it rather than leaching.
I'm going to encourage you a certain way here.
Yeah.
2 things. You should get a consultant
Yeah.
to look at it. They should understand the state statute, okay? But most importantly, what's your mixing energy? How fast is the water moving off your shoreline? How far are you going to have to get out?
Mhm.
Okay, and are the soils going to be conducive to directional drilling?
Yeah.
Okay, and if you go back to when we said we were looking at this in 2022 and 2023, that's when we started doing what are the soil profiles like? Again, you guys, I know you come off island once in a while. If you drive up through Falmouth and you drive up Route 28,
Yep,
you're on the western side of the glacial moraine.
right.
boulders,
We have them here.
boulders. If you go to the eastern side of the glacial moraine, go to Google, look this up. That's where the gravel pits have been for years. Okay, mining the gravel, all the way going up to the northern border. That gravel sand seam comes down to the east side of Falmouth Inner Harbor. So one of the things of getting a long distance in the outflow to Buzzards Bay, less mixing energy, and the chance of bowl started making that look very unfeasible. As we look on the bottom there, we saw sands and gravels and good mixing energy. So I got a couple more slides. I just want to finish. You have many things to cover. I'll sit here all night talking about this. But the next slide just shows you a little picture of the jack-up barge. It'll look like there's a little line there where it takes us to 500 feet going out there. Like I said, it's scheduled for late February. Next slide. Something that I like to take a little bragging rights on, but mostly it's Amy that gets the bragging rights for this. The state turns around and says, you can't impact eelgrass. The state says, in order to find out where the eelgrass is, you will hire divers and pay divers to go down and look for the eelgrass. That's the state's protocol. Well, we went to Hui, and Hui's got this nifty little that we put down and had it mapped to go back and forth over a fairly large area. We took a video of the entire time, and then it got analyzed for eelgrass, and we created very detailed maps of where the eelgrass is or isn't. The state was very impressed at one level, and another level they were like, but what about the divers work? So once we get past that, they were probably having a diver go down at 2,600 feet, and instead of having to map a whole big area, just confirm there's no eelgrass there. But we used the data from this camp. We've done it 2 seasons now already to look at the eelgrass. And we used the data from this to help define a little bit where we're taking the borings. So that as we're working in the winter here, because we have to work in the winter because eelgrass is dormant. And as we kind of have to take borings along that eelgrass area, we're having the least impact to them. And we adjusted them a little bit for patches that we didn't see the eelgrass in. Okay. So just to let you know where we're at with our schedule, we're doing environmental data gathering. Did it in 2024. We're doing it again this year. We've been applying for, we received some permits. We have more to go all the way up to 27. We expect to complete our draft environmental impact report later this year. We expect to have a complete environmental impact report no later than 2028. Then we've got a couple of years to actually construct the outfall.
Keep you busy through much more of your retirement. Awesome.
Is there a way to expedite this at all? I mean.
We are,
Sir.
trust me, we are doing everything possible to expedite it. Have you ever applied for a permit in Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Have you ever applied for a permit in the water?
Yeah.
Have you ever dealt with the Army Corps of Engineers?
I have.
Okay, yeah, so, I would say this, we set this program up and our target was to get these borings done in December of this year.
Yeah.
I figure the fact that we're doing them in February, I count that as a small success, because we kept getting a stonewall by the Army Corps just on this one permit that we needed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Is the flow you're working with based on the existing wastewater treatment plant capacity, or do you guys imagining expanding plant capacity as well?
So the answer is that we are currently have a construction project at the wastewater treatment plant. We have 2 SBRs. In the summertime, the 2 SBRs do a great job of treating, but if there's any problem with either SBR, we're at risk of dropping off that 3 number.
Single batch reactor.
Sequencing battery, I'm sorry. Yeah. We're building a 3rd one now, so we have 100% redundancy for our current flows. We're putting some sewers into a place called Tassa 1 right now. We have, until we get the outfall pinned down and more or less constructed, we have a real limitation on doing any more sewer. Okay? As we move past we're gonna do the outfall, we're gonna pay for the outfall, we're gonna build the outfall. And we'll develop a plan going.
So the outfall is going to increase your ability to discharge,
Yeah.
not just remove the discharge from those water.
Right now, the
Shed.
wastewater plant right now is permitted for 700,000.
Okay.
Sees 500,000.
Yep.
We have areas we want to sewer that we've been wanting to sewer for a long time, but we don't have any place to put the effluent. Till we get this in place, we can't then go forward sewering additional areas. Okay, so We have laid out the expansion that we're doing right now is a third SBR, sequence batch reactor. Everything's being done to lay it out right now for a fourth SBR. The question becomes if we go up past a certain number in the 1.7 or the 2 range, do we have to put 2 more modules in over the next 50 years? I would be 125 or 130 or something like that. So I'll probably only see the 4 modules.
Can you get us the report, the EIR report? That you say late 25?
You'll be on the list. I'll see that you're on the list.
Yep, appreciate it.
Use the alcohol pipe to fight forest fire.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent idea.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
May-
Appreciate
may I-
it.
Thank you very.
May I introduce myself, real quick?
Okay.
Do you mind? I'm
Yeah,
Amy
Amy.
Lowell. I'm
The
Amy
brains
Lowell.
will be on.
Go ahead. I'm Amy Lowell. I'm the town's wastewater
Go ahead, Amy.
superintendent. And I've been working with Steve on this project. We are very lucky to have Steve here involved. He's an enormous resource. And I really appreciate the Martha's Vineyard Commission listening to Steve's presentation today and all your good questions. This is a big project for the town, a very, very important project for the town, and we appreciate your time today.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. And I'm gonna discharge myself and catch the ferry back.
There you go.
Thank you for coming over.
Oh, I always like to do things like this in person. You know, it's doing it over the Zoom. No, I can't look at all of you as I'm talking and see who's going. Oh, yeah, I got it, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Up next.
Steve, it's your Mary.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you want me to introduce?
Why don't you introduce her better?
A year and a half or so ago, we applied to the Vision Fellowship for a fellowship for a climate communication specialist. And I thought it was really important that we do this because there's a lot of climate action going on the island, and it's really important that the public understand the issues, understand what actions are taking place, and to get them engaged and inspired to take action too. And we thought that having a communication specialist for 2 years would really get that information out to the community. And our fellow is Morgan Schroeder, and she's here to talk to you about what she's doing. So thank you, Morgan.
Thanks, Liz. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, I see some nods.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, I was wondering if I could actually share my screen. I don't have a PowerPoint, but we just accomplished something that we're very pleased with, which was we rebuilt the Vineyard Way website. So for those of you who need a little refresher, the Climate Action Plan was put together in 2022. And as a result of that plan, it outlined a number of actions, objectives, goals that all relate to the various thematic areas that all have to do with climate change on the island. At the time of the plan's creation, a website was built, but then we kind of realized that we wanted the website to function a little better for us as this platform that we could create these updates, share news, share information about events, projects, initiatives. And so we just completed a big overhaul of the Vineyard Way website. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and you can see, ta-da! So yeah, as Liz mentioned, I'm in the midst of my 2-year Vision Fellowship, focusing on climate change communications, supporting the Vineyard Way, the Climate Action Plan. So I wanted to give you guys a little tour of the new site and kind of invite some action. So this is our new landing page where right away you can go ahead and download the full Climate Action Plan. First and foremost, we wanted this site to be a strong repository of information, facts, and detailed kind of actions or information about all of the actions that were outlined in the plan. So that's that kind of like download the plan is there at the top of the page, everywhere. We go into some details about the forming of the plan, you know, how it was, how the 6 towns and the tribe and community partners came together. And then we have the information kind of organized into the 6 thematic areas of the climate action plan. And another exciting feature of the new website is we have this news and updates section. So the past website didn't offer a whole lot of flexibility to be able to like push out timely and relevant information. So we're pretty excited about this. And then it links to our social channels, which is kind of another area that we are focusing on as part of this 2-year fellowship. But as we know, social media platforms can sometimes be a bit fickle. So we wanted to make sure that we have a strong website, which is something that we own, we control, and we will be able to continue to push information out there no matter what. So I wanted to show kind of the real meat of the climate action plan. The meat of the website here has again more information about these kind of like overarching goals of the climate action plan, and then you can kind of dive into each of the thematic areas that you see here. So I wanted to kind of drill down into this public health and safety, since Dan's presentation kind of like alluded to some of the work that we're going to partner on. So in each of these thematic area pages, you can see right up at the top, like any sort of updates will be here. And then there are the ways to take action. So, and again, all of this is like, we now have the ability to update it easily and push out new information as it comes to pass. And then we kind of we go into the challenges and considerations that were present and remain present at the time of the plan's creation back in 2022, and that like remain challenges today. And then further down in each of the thematic area pages, we have the kind of detailed goals, objectives, and actions that were outlined in the detailed climate action plan. So like, for example, you can see down here, goal 1, by 2040, the safety of all residents and visitors. We have an effective countywide emergency preparedness response and recovery system in place, including multilingual communication. And then objective 6, we have the Dukes County Community Wildfire Protection Plan implemented, including training and specialized firefighting equipment. And then, you know, the actions, coordinations among the Martha's Vineyard Commission, the DCR, fire chief. So that's all what, you know, Dan was talking about. So now we have this great place where we can publicize the information. It can serve as a repository for resources. And we have our various social channels, which are all integrated to be able to get that information out to the public. And then the last thing that I really wanted to touch on, which the last 2 things, the news and updates, like I said, that kind of it'll appear under the certain thematic area that it's like the most related to, but then you can easily navigate over to the news and updates section, which kind of has all of them as these, you know, kind of like blog posts with some photos and details, you know, links out to partner organizations and the various categories. And then we have this get involved section, which as new kind of like projects or collaborations or initiatives or events start coming online, this will be a great place where we'll be able to kind of gather that information, and it can serve as that like online home for these certain, you know, projects that need a little bit more of like a public facing element. So under this kind of get involved section, there's, you know, the Plant Local MV initiative, which Liz is going to talk about next. So that's me being real excited about the new website. Also, my contact info is listed here, as well as our social channels. And then if you have anything, you know, anything, we're trying to keep it if it directly relates to the climate action plan or actions in the plan, excellent, but like, we also are open to any sort of news or relevant updates that relate to any sort of climate action on the island. So if you've got anything in mind, please reach out to us. The last little thing I just wanted to show everybody or remind everybody is we do have our social channels on both Instagram. So we're at the Vineyard Way MV on Instagram. We've been really trying to push out a lot of like foundational kind of content, which is, reminding people about the various thematic areas of the climate action plan, encouraging, the individual actions, the ways that people can get involved, any sort of, events or save the dates that are coming up. We're trying to make sure that these are being captured on both our Instagram and then our Facebook page, which we are MV Climate Action Plan, The Vineyard Way on Facebook. And, for better, for worse, both of these platforms are Meta platforms, which is the parent company of these social media channels. The cool thing, I guess, is that it does have a lot of this sort of insights that you're able to see how your content is performing, how your audience is growing, how your reach is expanding. So this has been really helpful for us when it comes to like actually trying to track and measure the impact that this climate communications specialist role is having on getting this information out into the world. So that's my spiel. We're very, very excited about the new website, and it's beautiful, and it's going to be a great way to continue to spread news and updates and encourage climate action on the island. So that's all I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I, just wanted to encourage people to check us out online and engage with our content. And if you've got any updates to share, please get them to us. We'll get them out.
Thank you, Morgan. Thevineyardway.org is the website.
Right, Liz goes,
Are we linking that to our site as well? Is there a way to do that?
Yes, I'm sure I don't think it is, I'm not sure if it's linked right now. I don't think so, but it will be.
I think the old one was.
I think it was, okay.
Yeah, if you go to our website, for climate change.
Okay, yeah. Makes
Thank you,
sense.
Morgan.
That looks great, Morgan. Thank you.
Liz, your second piece.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Bernadette?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you and Morgan just one question. This is fantastic. I'm really excited to go dive into that. Are you working with the school system at all to get communication and education out through the school systems? I work for the Martha's Vineyard Public School, so I was just curious if there was a plan in place to communicate out through the school systems. And schools.
We actually touched on that a little bit this morning, but I've worked with the schools quite a bit with the climate action plan and other climate work we're doing, and we've talked about getting involved with the schools in the social media and that, but I don't think we've actually gotten that far yet.
Okay. I'm just curious. Thank you.
We should.
I love
That's a
the
good, really
idea.
good point to communicate.
Thank you.
Good.
Okay. Well, we've been talking a lot about, Dan talked about the wildfire plan. We've been talking about the climate action plan. One of the things that I'm working on with many other people on the island is implementing the climate action plan. And this project, this grant that we had last year that we completed, called Fostering Resilient Ecosystems, addressed several of the actions in the climate action plan. A lot of the work we're doing right now to implement the plan is kind of foundational, like getting information and data we need so we can then go and use that to address bigger issues. But this was a very, very interesting project, a very successful collaboration, and it had a lot of different components that I just want to run through briefly tonight. Alex, please. So one of the components was that we actually updated the Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket vegetation maps and the wildlife corridor maps. And this is something that Chris Seidel, our GIS specialist, very much wanted to get done. And she did a great deal. These maps are going to be so useful for so many things, for landings, for land use planning, lands planning, for protecting biodiversity, wildlife corridors. It's just a really great amount of information that we now have. And we had other conservation organizations were out ground truthing the data as the maps were being developed. So this was really important.
Are these layers that we can add on GIS? Or are they, like if I go on to Access, and can I add this layer onto?
I think so. I'm not, I can check with Chris Seidel on that, yeah. So this was a great foundational layer. And we collaborated with Nantucket, which we don't do very often here on the island. So Alex. So after the maps were developed, we held a conservation summit with all the island conservation organizations, reviewing the maps, identifying priority habitats, really trying to work together to look at what we need to do in terms of natural resources protection. And the organizations identified a priority site for protection, and that's the Oyster Watcha area that bubbled right up to the top for habitat connectivity and watershed protection. So those summits are going to happen every other year, and it was really wonderful to have everyone in the same room talking about these issues. Another major component of this has to do with landscaping, and you know, the land is very stressed by climate change with heat and drought and heavy rains, and we were concerned that we were concerned about too much lawn and not enough native species being used. Native species are more conducive to the weather that we have. They take less water, they take less maintenance. And lawns really have no biodiversity. Lawns like take the nature out of nature. They just sort of sit there and don't really do anything valuable at all. So what we did was we worked with Sakiko Isamichi, who is a Biodiversity Works Vision Fellow, and she held focus groups with landscapers and nurseries and designers and others to find out what the challenges and barriers are to getting people to limit their lawn size and use more native species. And she found out some really interesting things. A lack of knowledge of native plants was one. Not enough native plants at the nurseries. Sometimes landscape designers don't focus on native plants. And there's that embedded mindset of the American lawn. So there were a lot of issues to address. So what we did was we took all that focus group information and we gave it to Alex, next please, Biodiversity Works, the Vineyard Conservation Society, and Poly Hill Arboretum. And those three groups worked together under a tight deadline, actually, too, and came up with these very wonderful educational materials. There are pamphlets and posters at the nurseries. There are pamphlets for landscapers, including some pamphlets in Portuguese, and this really beautiful Plant Local Martha's Vineyard book, which talks about what local plants are, why they're important. It shows all the, many of them. I'm going to pass these around, and we started a campaign in the fall to get these out, and the brochures are available in the libraries and I believe at the nurseries. And I think Poly Hill is going to be applying for a grant shortly, or may have just applied, to get a lot more of them printed up so that we can just disperse them. And this spring, we're going to have a climate event, and we're going to start a 2025 campaign to Plant Local campaign, really to focus on the summer population this year, and get the summer residents up to speed on what we're doing here. Jeff.
Can I quickly mention that the news this morning mentioned some study that identified on island farms, the two species of goldenrod were by far the best for pollinators. I don't know if it came from this, but it was reported.
It was a different study, but Matt Pelican, actually, I'm on the board of the Martha's Vineyard Community Seed Library, so we've actually been able to partner with this initiative, which has been hugely successful at getting the word out. We're stockpiling native pollinator plant seeds and making them available to the community. And we're also co-sponsoring with this group. Matt Pelican is doing it February 1st, which I hope everybody will come to at the West Tisbury Library on native pollinator plants. And he'll be referencing this booklet. It's going to be free at the West Tisbury Library. We're expecting big attendance, and it'll be a really great opportunity for folks to engage with us.
And didn't you have a good attendance at,
We had like double the attendance. We had like so
after
many
Morgan
people
sent
show-
out some social
After Morgan
media?
sent out some social media stuff and posted this, we had for us, a really large amount of people show up at the last just seed sorting event. We sorted seeds, and then there's a big seed swap on February 2nd, which is a weirdly heavily populated event. And then we have an annual seedling swap at the end of May, which is like the hottest event in West Tisbury.
A lot going on, a lot going on in the winter.
People are running each other over to get to those seedlings, so. It gets bigger every year, and we're working with the Agricultural Society, and this is really, it's part of a nationwide seed banking effort. That's really like, really excelling, like growing exponentially as climate efforts are expanding.
Yeah, just before Brian, Matt works for biodiversity. We've talked about Matt Pelican.
Matt
That's
Pelican.
what-
Right, what is this
So-
gonna be?
The talk at the West Tisbury Library, Matt's talk is February 1st. And I believe it's 3:30. Morgan, if you're still there, you actually had it up. Maybe you can look on your website, on your website at the time, right? February 1st, 3:30 at the West Tisbury Library. That's a Saturday. And then the following day will be the seed swap, but at that talk, we're actually going to have a lot of the native pollinator plant seeds that are listed in Liz's guide available for people to just take with them, along with growing instructions and tips.
So I have a question is anyone working with the local nurseries to put signs up like this is, unlike Linda, when I go to Mahoney's, I don't know what's native or not native. I just want to buy something that looks good.
Yeah.
So is there anyone working with these different nurseries saying, okay, this section or this group is
Yeah,
species?
I believe they
A
have
sign up,
posters up
do
and
they?
the nurseries were involved in the focus groups, and I'm sure that they're making more of an effort to make people aware that they have the native species and where they are. So
Because I've never seen a signage or anything that say anything like that.
A good logo, a little vineyard map, put on the flower.
Native grow. He's right though, if you're looking and you see like a little icon.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's green, I'm good. I don't care whether it's native or not native.
yeah, that's a
I
really.
like it to be
big thing.
native.
We should definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Alex, thanks. And while you're looking at the book, here's just a few samples of the pages, top 20 native plants, problem plants, invasive species. It talks about, there's just a lot of information, and it's really a beautifully.
It's so good.
Should we get the book?
Like, it's so good.
There should be some at the libraries and at the nurseries.
Do we
And
have a
we're-
stack here for the front?
I
Can we
don't,
get it into the bookstores?
we've talked about that, and we're hoping to get this grant to get a lot more.
We ran out of copies.
We did.
So
I mean, the
Is this something that's,
we have to get them printed.
is this something that's
We
online?
don't have the money to get. it
Yes,
printed.
it's online. I will show you where.
We had a
later in this.
limited budget. We got them printed. They went so quickly, West Tisbury, because the seed swap.
Yeah,
But we are getting more,
yeah.
we just, the first run is over. We need to get more of them. It's a great
Yeah.
book. Once we have them, everybody wants them, so.
Yeah, I believe Polly Hill applied to the Edie Foundation for funding
They did.
to do that. Yes, and it is on our website too, so I will give that in just a couple of minutes. Alex? Another component of this grant project was that we identified potential aquaculture sites in the 3 Down Island ponds. This is because we want to promote self-sufficiency, locally grown food, local jobs. Shellfish obviously help improve water quality. And this is something that would help the towns. If the towns decide that they would like to promote more aquaculture, now they know where there are some potential sites in these 3 ponds. And that's Lagoon Pond, the 3 sites identified there. And this was what we worked with the Shellfish Group and the Great Pond Foundation, and they actually mapped the eelgrass, because aquaculture sites cannot be in eelgrass, so they had to eliminate the sites where there are eelgrass. Then they eliminated sites where there are piers and moorings and navigational issues and came up with these 3 sites. So that was a really interesting project. And it's good information for the towns to have.
Sites, in yellow, orange boxes.
Yes.
Yeah, the middle one's mine.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Those are already.
Already done.
occupied.
Those are already sites that are being used.
That's Jeff's, mine, and Noah's.
That's what I was
All
wondering.
right, I apologize then. That is the wrong map. But there are 3 sites in the lagoon that were
Curious where
identified.
they are now, yeah.
3 new sites,
3, yes,
separate
unused.
from.
The ones that are currently in existence.
At what level are they pre-approved sites?
They're not approved in any way. They need to be approved by the town and the Division of Marine Fisheries. It's really just a guide for the town. If they want to pursue this, they know where they can go. And if an aquaculture farmer wants to pursue getting a permit, he knows what ponds there are sites available in that he may be able to access.
Yeah, I mean, this is great because this is something that the towns have struggled with, or at least Tisbury has struggled with when an aquaculturist says, I want to put it here. And everybody goes, well, why is that the right spot?
Right.
To do a pre-approval and say, here's an identified spot. Is there somebody that's interested in it? It's a much better way to go about it.
That's what Edgartown's done, and that's why they've had such success. is They even apply for all the permits for the
Exactly.
aquaculturists themselves, so it's not so laborious. The other thing is like Senji, for example, and even the lagoon on the OB side, it's still prohibited. So regs need to change for that to happen too, you know?
Is it water quality?
No, it's when basically, long story short, they just didn't want private aquaculture in the OB side inside the ponds. The fishermen didn't want that. That'll change, obviously, but no, this is great.
Alex? Yeah. Nope, back one, yeah, thank you. This grant also helped us pay for last spring's Climate Action Fair, which was a big success. We had over 40 organizations there. We had Portuguese translators, a biochar demonstration, 2 plant local MV panel discussions, and a wildfire preparedness panel discussion. So very relative to our conversations
And the
tonight.
seed library
And the
was
seed
there
library
too.
was there.
And oysters.
And oysters,
Yeah,
right, right. So that was a big success. And you know, what's really interesting that I've heard from the organizations that have tables at the fair is that they say it's really wonderful to talk to the people who come and inform them of what their group does and inspire them to take action. But it's equally interesting for the organizations to be among each other for the whole day, talking to each other about what they're doing and how they can collaborate. So it's really, it was really a good day. And there's Adam and Lucy, and there's Morgan up there too. Alex?
Get the fat Adams.
The old Adam. Now the new Adam.
With that round.
So as I said, this was a really good collaborative project. I mentioned most of those organizations. The ones on the right, Sheriff's Meadow, and the others are the organizations who helped Ground Truth for the vegetation maps, and the other organizations helped with the other various aspects of it.
I just want to point that we are working with the tribe.
Yes,
on it, and
yes.
they really know a lot in terms of native species and value and
Thank you for saying that.
stuff.
Yes,
I mean, it's amazing when you
yes,
look at the materials and look what they provide and really listen.
yes.
And they have been a part of all of our ag stuff that we've ever done, including the food one, a couple months ago as well.
Right. And Sakiko did do a focus group with the tribe as well.
They've been great.
Yeah.
I just want to give them some credit.
And so that's that project. I just wanted to quickly mention that we have another project going on, which is a public food forest grant that we also got from the same grant program, where Mary Sage Napolitan is designing a public food forest in Quina. And then she's going to be assessing and locating sites for food forests in all the other towns. So food security.
I'm gonna show my ignorance. What is a food forest?
A food forest is a forest where you plant food and it grows and people can go and pick it and eat it.
It's not like a garden though, it's just.
Where you end up
just
hunting
planted.
deer.
And there's also food at.
Yeah, it's
So
like,
you
it's
have
a
like a nut
combination.
tree and then the sort of this lower trees. that
It's a
are-
combination
the deer.
intentional.
You must
Great
love it.
hunting.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a combination intentional garden and like nativized, different tier food area. So it doesn't look like a conventional garden where
Yeah.
you've got like roses.
Liz, are you gonna do the climate action fair again this year?
No, we're not doing it this year. We were afraid that it would get stale if we kept doing it year after year after year, so we thought we'd take a break this year. And we're gonna be doing some sort of climate event, and I don't know enough details to really say anything yet, where we're going to be reintroducing the Plant Local campaign and hopefully focusing on seasonal residents.
And at some point, we hope to have an opportunity to actually use the front area as a Plant Local model because it's so publicly visible. Biodiversity Works came here, if I'm not speaking out of turn, and actually did an evaluation. So it's great to see their process.
That's a
They'll
great
do it
idea.
for any homeowner.
Oh,
And I would
wow.
encourage every single one of the commissioners to contact Biodiversity Works, ask them to come to your house and do an assessment. The seed library can provide you with the seeds to plant on your own. And the Plant Local Guide can help you, work with them to figure out how to convert your own yard and your own lawn.
Yeah.
It's a super exciting opportunity.
Yeah, that's a
And
great.
yeah, and actually to be able to have a demonstration yard in our front yard with
On a busy street.
on a very busy street.
And getting back to what Adam said about working with the tribe, I just wanted to mention too that the event that we're planning for the Plant Local this late spring, early summer is going to be a collaboration with the tribe.
I tried to get the food for us to include Big Macs and French fries. Told me it didn't grow in this locale.
I have one more slide, Alex.
It's not the right weather.
Oh, actually,
Another climate action fair in, say, about a year or so, there might be some interest, given what we're gonna see over the next year.
what are we going to see?
Nothing. Go ahead.
I just, a
Big
couple
Macs.
things that are coming up that we're working on now, as I said, that local event. We're gonna be hopefully working with Mass DOT, Oak Bluffs and Tisbury to start talking about the flooding on Beach Road and what's gonna be done about that. And I've been working for months and will continue to work with the towns to update their floodplain and wetlands bylaws to address the current and future climate change conditions in the floodplains, and protecting our wetlands. And so the Vineyard Way is our climate action plan. The website is thevineyardway.org. You can go there, and if you go to the Get Involved section, you can see the Plant Local booklet brochure. So if anyone has any questions.
There's QR codes that are gonna be going up at all the libraries too, so you can just use your phone to scan in it. I've got one laminated at West Tisbury Library right next to the seed catalog. So pick up seeds and then scan and go straight to the.
Awesome, worthless. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is great.
I want that.
Yeah, that looks amazing.
That's, I can see how
I
that
would
would,
pay money for that,
that
Oh, yeah.
would go.
you know,
like
to be in the garden
wildfire.
section of the bookshop.
Where's on the website?
That's amazing.
The book, May, right?
You go to Get Involved section on the website.
I think you
One
can
that's
actually
available now.
Google Plant and it'll just bring you straight.
Laura is the last.
I also
Yeah, 'cause
just,
affordable
I dropped it in
housing
the
is so
chat
fun. I'm gonna
too.
keep- Hey,
I was just saying that I
Thank
put
you,
the Plant
Morgan.
Local MBA
Thank
resource
you, Morgan. Thank
chat
you.
here.
Thanks.
The last book I saw that was as popular as that one was Hiking Trails of Martha's Vineyard, when it was that about that size and bound.
They had a little small one
A
that was
little,
about this big,
yeah, it
yeah.
had the map in it, and everybody kept.
Yeah, but don't
stealing
you
it
have the
from my
Trails
house.
MV app?
And now it's an app. Maybe that should be an app.
I like the hard copy wandering through the woods.
That's
All
right.
right.
We did the trails of
Laura.
too, was us.
You're up next.
Okay, so for those who don't know me on screen or new commissioners, it's really nice to meet you. I'm Laura Silber. I'm the Island Housing Planner for the Martha's Vineyard Commission. I'm just starting my third year with the commission. We've been very busy, and Alex, if I can screen share, I did not do a PowerPoint. I'm gonna try to make this quick and seamless. That was a great PowerPoint. I came out wrong.
You were not
I
slow
came out
at
wrong. I can't do one as nice as Liz, so.
Zoning isn't quite as popular as native
Almost,
plants.
yeah, it's not as pretty. That's
What
for
was
sure.
your turnout last night?
Or today.
It was really good. We had a great- Yeah,
Yeah.
well, 32 on the actual Zoom, and then I had like 10 requests already lined up before the event with administrators and other community members. and work-
Where can I get the link to
Ah,
watch
well,
that?
Right here, look at this.
Oh,
Share. Okay, so this This is our newly redone housing page. It's the housing landing page. If you go to the Martha's Vineyard Commission website and you hover over the little planning tab, then you will see a drop-down menu that allows you to choose whichever planning region you want. What's up?
You can't hover, you have to actually click it.
Okay, so you have to click it. All right, let's see. Yeah, you gotta, oh, God, thanks, Ben. Okay, so, nope, you hover and it drops down. Yeah. Okay, and you go to the housing page. So the first thing you're gonna see is our brand new 2024 zoning for housing solution zoning analysis, which we just presented last night to the public. Judy Barrett Planning did the analysis with us. They did a fantastic job. The first link right here is the actual zoning analysis. It's a fantastic tool. It goes through the whole of the zoning, anything related to housing in the 6 island towns. Here, I'll just click on it so you can see very briefly. In the 6 island towns, and it goes over the 30,000 foot view with an executive summary. And then it goes to each, sorry, I'm gonna scroll, don't get dizzy. It goes to residential zoning analysis by topic. We have 13 of those topics here. They range from definitions on affordable housing to multifamily, accessory dwelling units, regulation of short-term rentals, provisions for small lots, employee housing, a lot of things that we see here at the commission that can and should be addressed at the town level through zoning and is very inconsistently addressed across the island. So what the report does is it goes through each one of these issues and how it plays out in all 6 towns. It also provides a map so it shows you visually which town has something and which towns do not have something, right? Zoning overview by town. It does this for all of these 13 issues and then goes town by town. And then, sorry, close your eyes, everybody. I'm going to scroll. So here's multifamily zoning, actually. So what is it? What needs does it address? And then how does it play out through the towns? Gives you this fantastic handy chart. Let me just collapse this. So that you can see who's got it, who doesn't have it. Special permit, is it allowed by right? Does it vary by district? What's the ease of permitting? Oh, low on multifamily zoning through the whole island. Where can you do it by right? Only those teeny tiny little spots. You can really see visually what it looks like. And then it goes into what are the general trends? And then it moves on to the next topic. Accessory dwelling units. When you go to the next section, so it goes through all these 13. When you go to the next session, it then goes town by town and breaks each of these issues down town by town. Yes, Craig.
Yeah, sorry to just interrupt, but
No, it's okay.
was that by right without getting special permits? Because I know some of the stuff I saw, like you're able to do it, but you have to get a special permit.
It's indicated in the report if it's by right or it's by special permit,
Okay.
where it's by right, where it's by special permit.
Okay.
So that's really clear.
Is that updated for the changes in the new housing law?
Yes, it's actually in addition to this, I'll back out of this now. Right underneath it are the model bylaws. There's a model bylaw toolkit that provides a model bylaw for the towns for each one of those 13 issues that's
Each one of
addressed.
the topics has,
What's up?
has model bylaws, each one of the topics.
Each one of the topics
You
has a
wanted to
model
do it, it
bylaw,
has a
yeah,
model.
that's aligned with the new state laws. So we actually
Okay.
provided to the towns in October, before this was finished and released, the short-term rental model bylaw and the accessory dwelling unit model bylaw, both of which are in compliance with decisions that have happened in the courts across the state and with the the Affordable Homes Act accessory dwelling unit by right law that was passed. And when
You know, it says 2024. Laura, we really only finished this like, I don't want to say early 25, but late 24.
it
So
was about Christmas, it was still
yeah,
technically
it's up, it's just
2024.
up to date. No, but it's as up to date as we possibly
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah,
How many of the towns have expressed an interest in adopting this?
well, we just rolled it out. So, and let me finish that. And I will
Sorry
just,
if I'm getting ahead of you.
no, it's okay. I will just say, so you can access all this information on the website. The other thing you can see is the PowerPoint from Judy Barrett's presentation last night, which really like distills this down into very, an easy to read, like sort of high points. So that's kind of a good place to start if you don't want to read through the whole zoning analysis right away.
Are there town bylaws that are now in conflict with the state ADU?
Yes, all of the town bylaws, except for the town of Tisbury, are not in alignment yet with the state.
Well, we're still waiting AG approval.
You're just waiting AG approval, but what they adopted is in line with the state.
Okay.
So
And
we've.
none of the other
provided-
towns have yet adopted bylaws to align with the state
They
ADU.
haven't yet, but they have all actually tapped the Martha's Vineyard Commission, and I've been meeting with the planning boards and the affordable housing committees in most of the towns and helping them draft bylaws so they can come into compliance with the new accessory dwelling unit law.
And final recommendation guidance from the state isn't due until February 6th.
Well, it's a moving target and it's happening in like real time. So February 2nd, I believe this goes into effect across the state. And unfortunately, the state guidance will not be completed when this goes into effect. But they've provided.
Time that's happened.
Exactly. They've provided an enormous
sure.
amount of preliminary information and really well-detailed website that gives you very clear directives. So we know that, use and occupancy restrictions are not allowed. Short-term rental restrictions on ADUs are allowed specifically and explicitly, and the state is really getting that information out there because they know that's a particular concern in the seasonal communities, which is our region, and I'll get to the seasonal communities in a minute, Cape and Islands and the Southern Berkshires. So they specifically put that right in at the request of Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, because we heard from the island towns that they wanted the right to restrict against short-term rentals for ADUs if they chose to do so. They wanted the state to allow them to do that. So again, each town will have to opt how they want to address short-term rentals in the ADUs, but they've been granted the right by the state to do that in their own town.
Tisbury has passed a bylaw that conforms to the state law, and you're just waiting to hear from the AG.
Yeah.
And once the AG says it's okay, it'll become effective?
Yep.
Okay.
Back to the date of the first public hearing, it's October 23rd.
Right. Sorry, and your question, Kate, was have the towns expressed interest?
Yeah, I want to
Yes.
know, yeah. okay,
Yeah, there's a
good.
lot of interest, and one of the reasons we did this was because we got so many requests from planning boards and affordable housing committees for assistance on all of these related bylaws, that it made sense to actually do a wholesale review of all the zoning bylaws to allow the towns also to look at each other's bylaws. And we offered some comparisons with Nantucket, we ported over best practices. So it's a very implementable study. This was an update to a 2014 study that was done by the Martha's Vineyard Commission, which although very rich in information, was difficult to access and difficult for the layperson to actually read. So we made a real effort with this to make it really easy to understand, super accessible for, the average voter, for people on boards, for commissioners, for, and for planners.
It's also a compendium to the housing needs assessment, which was also done last fall.
Right.
Our strategy sort of was, we needed to understand the facts, the data, in order to, to add the innovation. This part of it was the innovation.
So this is the second step of a three-part process that the Martha's Vineyard Commission staff is shepherding along for the towns. The first was the housing needs assessment, which is the next hit below on this page, which you can access. Some of you, are familiar with this and attended presentations that we did. So the first step is a housing needs assessment. The second step is the zoning analysis. The third step is going to be updating the housing production plans for all 6 towns. We received a very generous earmark from the state budget to fund the bulk of that project. We just executed a contract with Barrett Planning to get that going, and the towns have committed funding for the gap funding to complete the project.
Laura, will that enable the towns, none of whom are, as I understand it, other than Aquinnah, in compliance with 40B? Will this enable the towns then to get safe harbor?
If they adopt their housing production plans, yes, so every town needs a housing production plan that is filed, certified by the Executive Office of Housing communities in order to reach safe through incremental gain in their subsidized housing inventory.
Have
So
any towns done this yet? Any towns on the island done it yet?
prior to this, the commission had done housing production plans for all the island towns.
Mhm.
Tisbury adopted their housing production plan and filed, Oak Bluffs adopted their housing production plan and filed, and West Tisbury adopted their housing production plan and filed. The other towns,
Quinn doesn't need to. so-
Quinn doesn't need to file because they're over their 10%. Chilmark Chilmark apparently approved it and then never filed it with the state. The state has no record of Chilmark ever having a housing production plan. And Edgartown never adopted its housing production.
And how many units of housing total would it take for all the island towns to meet that 10% goal?
Well, I don't have that right in front of me. I would have to look in the housing needs assessment. I don't have that off the top of my head.
Housing production plans allow you to be in safe harbor and making progress.
Yeah, I mean, for like,
Not.
right,
You're not, you're.
Compliance.
yeah.
They also need to be, the reason that a lot of these towns are not is where they have 5 years and then they expire.
Well,
problem we
the
got-
housing production plans all expired this summer.
Yeah.
So we have a gap now where there's no housing production plans on, that are certified on file. with the state.
So, but at some point in time, I know the rules are now that you have to be making progress. At some point in time, they're gonna say you have to meet this goal of 10%. And how many units that encompasses is very important to the MV Commission, because the reason we're here is to prevent overdevelopment. So that number is crucial to what we do every day.
Yeah, we
So-
have those numbers in the assessment. 500. Is it $500? Thank you. Okay, so 500, we're 500 units shy. They don't have to be new units. They can be conversions, they can be buy downs, they can be, they can be repurposed, repurposed buildings. They can be any number of things. And the zoning analysis really goes into why repurposing is so important, why preservation is so important, and why purchasing year-round deed restrictions and creating a year-round deed restriction program on existing units is so critically important. That overlaps with the subsidized housing.
I think buy downs are huge. I think we have to really focus on that.
I agree.
Talk about how towns have to track these. I mean, part of it is maintaining your inventory.
Yeah, so when we did the housing needs assessment, what we discovered was that most of the towns were not actually aware of what their subsidized housing inventory was, and were not accurately keeping track and maintaining an accurate representation with the state. So West Tisbury, for instance, had many units that were on the ground that they had never recorded with the state for filing. So the number that was shown is far lower than what they had. The same was true in most of the island towns. I think with the exception of Tisbury, who had everything on their subsidized housing inventory. So part of my job was to work with the affordable housing committees and the town administrators in all of the towns and the planning boards to really educate and help them understand why it's so critical to know what your inventory is from a home for it. And then track your inventory and update your subsidized housing inventory regularly with the state.
Especially if you want to claim incremental growth.
Right.
towards The 10.
So for instance, towns like West Tisbury or Quina or Chilmark are so small that achieving safe harbor can be as small as putting like 5 units on the subsidized housing inventory in 1 year. And then you get a year of safe harbor, during which time no one can propose a 40B in your town that you're obligated to accept. It doesn't mean that your town can't use 40B during that time or approve a 40B, but it's how towns like Nantucket and Provincetown and many other communities actually leverage 40B with private developers to say, sure, we'll take a look at your 40B if it's 100% year-round housing. And guess what? Developers actually come through. And then 40Bs that meet the needs of the town and private funds actually propel the town further along their path towards their subsidized housing inventory and towards the other needs like missing middle.
I thought
So
that was the most interesting point made in the 40B presentation yesterday. That, if we all get out ahead of it, 40B actually becomes a tool the towns can use versus have it used against them.
right.
And the town's in control about what type of development happens instead of the 40B developer being in charge. I mean, that was just like, I think eye-opening for a lot of people on
Yeah.
presentation.
Nantucket's actively using this to say to developers, great, 25% affordable, and can the other 75% be year round? And developers are going, okay. Because otherwise Nantucket can say, we have no interest, because they are in extended safe harbor. They have a 2-year safe harbor because they've been making incremental progress and they've been stacking their safe harbor. So as they put new units on through these 40B projects, they achieve another year or 2 years of safe harbor. They will stay continuously in safe harbor until they hit their 10%. And Provincetown is the same thing. They've stayed in continuous safe harbor and they're about to hit their 10%.
I brought this up to Adam earlier. Do we have an idea of what actually people are looking for in terms of purchasing or renting? Like a survey, do we know if more people who don't have homes would prefer to rent or would prefer to buy? Do they all want single family homes? Are they okay in condos?
Yeah,
Do we have any type of data to say to a developer, look, this is the need that is actually wanted and needed? Go build it.
we don't have personal survey data from individuals as like, I want to live in this. What we do have is data from the housing needs assessment that shows that people will live in whatever they have available.
Wow, okay.
And we also
Only in basements now.
And we also have a ton of data from Healthy Aging MV that shows us how many of our seniors are incredibly overhoused and desperate to downsize. And we also have a ton of data from all the wait lists from DCRHA that show us how many small, single adult households and young couples there are who are on wait lists for rentals, and there are no small units available.
Right.
You just don't have 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms.
So we have monetary to back that up though, like what people can afford?
We have that through the AMI.
AMI, yeah.
DCRHA is able to calculate that out. There's a state formula for area median income.
Sure.
There's a chart that goes all the way from 0, like we can calculate up to 240.
What are most people in AMI wise?
It's not a most, it's a range. 40% of the island workforce is at 80% and below. And that's a really important thing to realize. I got a lot of questions over like the last couple days about what is an affordable housing project that's 80% and below as defined by the state. That I heard someone say, that's not island workforce. And I was able to say, no, we have hard data that shows that 40% of our island workforce, working adults on Martha's Vineyard, make 80% of AMI or below. So they are being served by these projects.
Right.
So my question, I may have brought this to you before, and I've heard this many times, and you'll it's probably in front of us before talking about this. So I'm always told that if we create 100 units of affordable housing, it's just going to go to islanders. It's not going to go to people from off island. Now, if that's the case, if they are islanders, they already have housing. They've got somewhere to live. It's probably substandard housing. And luckily, they're moving out of the basement apartment and they're moving into this nice new affordable housing. But that just creates a vacuum. It's a vacuum to be backfilled by people who don't mind living in that substandard housing. So I think it would be beneficial if we did some, if the towns did some kind of inspections to eliminate the substandard housing that people are living in, because otherwise all we're going to do is consistently, every time we build affordable housing, just consistently increase the population, increase the number of kids who go to our schools, increase the amount of traffic we have. Like there's got to be some way of yes, we need to get people into affordable housing, but we got to get rid of the substandard housing at the same time.
So I don't think that representation is accurate, and I appreciate what you're saying.
I can tell you now, I know I live in substandard basement apartments, but
No, I know, so I do too. I have lived in a substandard basement apartment myself.
I've been homeless because of this situation, so I know it very well.
Yeah, but what I do want to point out is that first of all, we're not talking about all new construction, right? So when you said new units going on the ground, some of this is repurposing what's already there, right? A lot of times what we have is serious overcrowding. So you have multiple families living in one building, right? Where you have multi-generational families crammed into a home because grandma owns the house.
Right.
And the children and grandchildren don't have a place to live. what some of this does is relieving the pressure on those multi-generational families so that you do have housing for the next generation who are already here and crammed into spaces that are too small. They're not necessarily in substandard housing. They may just be doubled up or tripled up with grandma and grandpa and with the sister and brother-in-law and their kids as well. So it's not a one size fits all situation. There will always be substandard housing here because that's the nature of the beast here. You know, that's up to the building departments. We don't have control over
Right.
that at the MBC. That's up to the building departments about what they want to do.
But that's part of the whole zoning stuff that you've been
Part of
talking
that
about.
is
Yeah.
the zoning. So the accessory dwelling unit by right law is going to allow a lot of these substandard accessory dwelling units or illegal apartments to actually come and put in an actual kitchen instead of a burner, you know?
Right.
And a second exit.
And a second exit
So-
is going to allow them to do that. And that's one of the reasons why that ADU law is so incredibly important.
It is, and this discussion, I'm sure we could probably go
Yeah.
another day. And this is phenomenal work. And I think everyone would be well served by making sure that you get a handle on the report. One more question from Commissioner Robinson, and then we're gonna move on in the interest of.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
And
I could go on forever. I have just one more thing about the seasonal communities. That's
Okay.
just a resource page to share. Yep.
Yeah, just, you mentioned conversion, and I'm somebody that supports conversion. But it's something that we see that's very sporadic. Tools or what methods are we looking at to aid conversion as a way to create housing?
It's all in the report.
Read, young
Again.
One thing is zoning. If all we did, and Judy Barrett said this on the presentation tonight, she said if all that happened here was that all 6 towns made a by right pathway for duplexes, it would completely change the situation here.
Doesn't ADUs almost kind of do that?
No,
I mean, it does allow to convert a section of a home into an ADU.
it requires the homeowner to expend their own money, an accessory dwelling unit, a private individual. With the cost of construction, we're gonna see a limited amount of that.
So that's more, that's more than zoning, is that's being
That's
subsidized.
incentives, right, the report goes into that, and housing needs assessment goes into that as well. That's a next step that the towns are gonna be taking.
And I'll let you get to the seasonal. We also just got the guidance from the state on ADUs. The guidance we have been waiting for, the regulatory guidance. So we'll put that up on the website.
Yep.
And the towns could look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just got that.
And so the links are up on mass.gov for a lot of this stuff. So if you go to mass.gov and you just put in accessory dwelling units, you'll get to the guidance. It's all up there. I think I lost my screen share ability, but Alex, there's a page on mass.gov that actually said out for the seasonal communities designation. And I just wanted to briefly touch on this before I stop talking. This is a huge, profound tool that the state has given us by designating us as seasonal communities and providing us with a seasonal communities toolkit. It's in its infancy. This is going to be something that's going to be very powerful for us over many, many decades. So on the website, you go type in seasonal communities in mass.gov. You go to this page, which I can't share because I lost my shareability, but it has the whole law. It has all of the ancillary pieces of information. So for anyone who has questions, you can go on there and take a look. There's been a Seasonal Communities Advisory Council that was mandated by the Affordable Homes Act, appointed at state level. I was sworn in as the Martha's Vineyard representative to the Seasonal Communities Advisory Council. There's a rep from Nantucket, from the Cape Cod Commission, and from the Berkshires. So along with other officials from across the region, we are working with the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities and the legislative delegations from our areas and the governor's office to actually, and there's the webpage, to actually flesh out these tools and use the seasonal communities designation as a pathway for other tools that we need that we don't yet have. So this is a hugely powerful, powerful tool for our communities. And I really do want to give a huge thank you to our executive director, Adam Turner, who gave me the go-ahead to take this request that the towns had for all of these tools and really like flesh it out into a whole toolkit and take it to the state and say, hey, this is something we should really consider, like, you know, adopting at state level. So, and with that,
I appreciate that.
Excellent work. We're so lucky to have you fighting on our side.
thank you.
Good work.
Thank
Yeah.
Or we did just get literally just got
Oh,
the guidance
great.
from the AG's
Oh,
office.
good, great. That'll be helpful. Okay, thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
So, this is amazing work, and amazing value that I think, all the planning departments are bringing back to the town. It gives us a tremendous amount of fun things to do in that, but local book, I think hard and worthy for these presentations. We weren't able to participate in that 40B presentation last night. Make sure you take a look at the work that was done there. Now on to the next item on the agenda. I'll turn over the gavel.
So you run modification.
Am I running modification?
Yeah,
review?
Chairman.
Oh, okay.
Sam, can you entertain
All
us
right.
as much as these folks have?
Yeah, yeah. Come on up.
Come on up.
Come on down.
You want me to do it?
I'll do it.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah, go ahead.
I changed my name.
I'll
Okay,
let Doug
well,
run this one.
You should have your own name tag. You're enough.
he doesn't need a name tag. Some people. No. Anyway, thank you for coming, Sam. Peter's asked me to do the modification review. What is before us is an application, and Richard will give us as usual DRI coordinator overview and identifying any planning concerns. But Sam wants to modify the dormer on a unit that he has at the MV Bank condominium project. And it was reviewed at land use planning in a very close vote. Majority recommended that this be subject to a public hearing that had sufficient regional impact. Our job tonight is to listen to the proposal and determine whether or not there is sufficient regional impact to require a public hearing. And if we find that it doesn't, then we have to determine whether or not we should approve or deny the requested modification. If we vote to have a public hearing, then we'll do the usual drill that we do. I will note that there was concern by some members of land use planning that the abutters, the two direct abutters, would not have an opportunity to express their concerns unless we had a public hearing. However, both sets of abutters submitted writings that give us their positions on that. Richard, would you tell us what this is about, and then we'll hear from Sam?
You got it. This is DRI 674 M8 20 Union Court alteration. The owner is Dumb NV Investments / Dunn Family LLC. The applicant is Reeve Sam Dunn. Project location is 20 Union Court in Tisbury. It's a self-referral, and the trigger is modification of an existing DRI. The proposal is a dormer addition to a residential second floor condominium unit, including the installation of east facing and north facing kosher windows. Courtesy of the Tisbury Assessor's Map, you can see the overall condominium complex here outlined in yellow. This is Union Street in Tisbury. This is Main Street in Tisbury. And over here you can see the Steamship Authority Terminal, and there's the Island Home berth there. This is a little bit of a close-up. This is the subject part of the condominium complex.
That is 20 Union Court.
That
Is
is
that right?
correct. This is the recorded, well, a portion of the recorded site plan. This has since been updated, but that update is not yet recorded. But goes up pertinent to 20 Union Court. This is 20 Union Court right here. This is the proposed addition, dormer addition to this structure. This has been modified since the LUPC saw it. Several days ago, the applicant amended this drawing and eliminated this window by putting some shingles in there. So evidently, this window here would no longer be there, and that is apparently by agreement with one of the neighbors for privacy reasons. This is the applicant's floor plan, and the yellow here shows the area of activity in addition. These are the recorded survey plans of this unit, and we're only looking at the second and third floors of the structure. The ground floor is offices, but the second and third floor are residential, and you can see the square footage is listed here on these units.
But the
It is
third
one
floor,
unit, I would say.
the change is to the third floor, right? Sam?
Yes,
Okay.
and it's a change of what is a storage room into a room that has windows in it.
Right.
Or
Right here?
Yeah. It just enlarges that room.
This is a photograph provided by the applicant, construction of this condominium unit that shows a bit of the view that the applicant would like to capture with the windows that is presently walled off and has no window. This opening existed during the construction phase, but does not exist now. And here are some of the planning items. One of them is the impact on a butter, specifically privacy. This is a view from that unit towards one of the neighbors' homes, which is not part of the condominium unit here. And you can see actually not only does 20 Union Court look out on it, but this structure here, which is not part of this review, but just to give a little bit of an idea, this is 26 Union Court, also looks down on the neighbor's property.
And that is the Stam property, right?
That is correct. Another planning item is potentially the scenic values, and we could also say impact on the butters. What the view shed, what change to the view shed there may be, if any, based on this dormer addition. And here we are looking from this is the Stam's house right here, and you can see a little driveway here. And if you look over, this is the building that would receive the addition. And this is a little bit of a close-up on it.
Let's just hold that a second, because I want to make sure everybody understands it. Sam, what you're talking about is building out this dormer.
Half of that,
Right in that area?
yes,
Okay. That's the only change you want to make?
yes.
Okay.
And along with scenic values, there is the view from the harbor, and well, staff did not go on the harbor, but staff did go on the beach. And these are two shots taken from the beach. This would be the section that is owned by the condominium complex. Well, we're in the sort of the public section, but as you go in, it becomes private, and you can't see it. Actually, you cannot see Union Court because there are obstructing buildings from that vantage point. But as you walk down the beach a little bit more to the property owned, I believe by the riders, you can see 20 Union Court. And this is 20 Union Court right here. And so it would be visible from the water and from the beach from certain angles. The next planning item is massing. Well, one neighbor alleges through a letter that there had been a verbal agreement struck with the applicant to prohibit upper story dormers on bordering buildings. That was part of the letter that we commission received. And some other planning items. There is a town bylaw that covers this section of town that prevents flammable roofs. But this particular roof, whether or not it was flammable, it's not clear what the roof was be made of. Even if it was, there are indications that the fire department would grant a variance because if all the other roofs in the complex are flammable, and this one was determined to have to be made not flammable, it would really solve the issue. Another concern is the possible creation of an additional bedroom. And one other would be daytime reflectivity of sunlight, and then nighttime light emission. And that's it in a nutshell, this project, the small project.
Want to tell us about it, Sam?
I have not seen this other letter that you're talking about. That's from the writers.
No, there are three letters. There's one letter from the writer's lawyer, January 14th. There's the first letter from Mr. Stam dated January 13th. You've seen those two. And then Mr. Stam delivered a letter this afternoon dated January 23, which is 3 sentences. I can read it. Have you not seen this?
I've seen that one. I've seen that one.
Okay.
Okay.
I have copies.
What
of
else?
it.
You can read that one if it's only 3 because no one
Yeah, I'll
else
read it.
started.
Yeah, January 23, to Peter Wharton. Dear Mr. Wharton, on January 13, I submitted a letter to the LUPC documenting a number of objections to the planned modification to 20 Union Court DRI 674 M8. A primary concern were the windows overlooking the second-story bedroom on the west side of our house. Mr. Dunn has submitted an updated elevation dated 2025-121, showing the removal of one of the east windows and has agreed to add louvers to the remaining east window to provide additional privacy for us. Based on Mr. Dunn's cooperation with these changes, we are withdrawing our objection to this modification. Thank you, Peter Stamp.
You know, that's a huge letter that we should have all been aware of.
It just got here at 5:52 PM.
Right, so that's when we either continue this because there's new information that came forward, or that's like the first thing that should have come up.
Well, it just came up.
What obligations do we have to take these letters into account without a public hearing?
If it's part of the record that's been submitted, I think we can.
But it's not
take-
submitted by the applicant,
I don't see that as a problem.
but other people in the public might want to submit something.
That's true.
They're not,
Other
they're
people
being
in the
deprived
public,
of that.
unless there's a public hearing, the public is not notified
Right.
that, and of their opportunity to speak about this. But that's the evidence that is before us at this time. We have to determine whether or not there's a sufficient regional impact to warrant a public hearing.
So may I make a motion?
Well, Sam, I want to get a little bit of clarity on what you're proposing so that I understand and Mr. Stam understands what you're saying. The one window on the additional elevation, you're not gonna have.
Correct.
And the next window next to it, you're gonna put louvers on?
Inside.
Inside, of course, yeah. Is there then a diagonal window that goes around? There's not gonna be any louvers on that.
Faces away from.
Yeah. Okay,
What is the purpose of the loopers?
So that you can't look down into one of the Stam's bedrooms.
But you would be able to continue
Out.
that.
okay, so the louvers are gonna be straight. I guess.
So
They fixed?
I did not expect this to be such a big deal. I mean, we wanted to put a dormer on the corner of the house because, I mean, frankly, I didn't see the opportunity when I was originally designing the project, and then I came to realize it was, it's really be a great, really nice feature. And that's the gist of it. When Mr. Stam objected, I was taken aback because I didn't realize, I would have gone to him had I realized that he cared or that anyone cared. I just thought this was a really tiny item. And so we met, we talked, and we came to an accommodation that we're both happy with. I think it's
Um, Go ahead, Mike, and then.
I'd just like to understand a little more about the roof line. It was indicated in a letter that the roof line wasn't supposed to change. It was in keeping with the neighborhood. Is that an agreement you had made earlier in the project?
No, no, and there've been a series of letters from Mr. Ryder's lawyer, never hear from him. And, he's alleged that I made some verbal agreement with him, which I did not. And he's also alleged that we tried to claim rights to his driveway, which I did not. It's just, I've talked to them many times. I've made many concessions to them. This is just how they decide to handle things. They have lawyers write letters about everything, really.
Ben, and then Kathy has a question. Go ahead, Ben.
Because you're preserving the return of the hip roof under
Yes.
the 3 new windows, what is that? What's the bottom of it? What's the sill height off the floor in this space?
It's about 3 feet,
What's the sill height for the double hung
Two-
windows?
2 feet, 2 feet. So I think it's important architecturally to have this perched on the existing overhangs.
I mean, I'm just, the windows are gonna be quite high, so that sight line out
It's
is,
about 3 feet. It's a little higher than I would want it to be, but it's,
I mean, that's where I was headed, is like,
Yeah.
I see what you wanna do, but you're not really getting the view the way you would probably want it if you didn't.
it is what it is. But I think it's definitely worth doing. I mean, that's just how I feel about it.
Kathy?
If Mr. Dunn has already explained this, then just tell me, but I'm a little confused about how this change is coming about now. Like, is there a story to this? Am I allowed to ask, is this an apartment that's already been sold? Is about to be resold? I mean, Sam, I believe all of a
No.
sudden you thought it was a nice idea, but
No.
it's got to have a story behind it.
The story is that the architect screwed up and didn't realize this opportunity in the beginning. And had it been designed slightly differently, I'm sure it would be in place and we would be having this conversation.
The condominium owner is leaning on the architect to fix it, right?
Well, and that's the same person.
Yeah.
What do you, wait a minute, wait a minute. What do you mean
Linda?
it's the same person?
Oh,
Because we live there.
it's Sam's condo.
We live there.
Who owns this apartment?
Sam.
Is this, this is
His
for,
house.
Sam Dunn does.
and are you, so this is for
Yes, it's for him.
you to
live
be
there.
having the view? Is that right?
Yes.
Is this apartment going to be sold?
Yes.
I guess the part that I'm
No.
getting to
Well,
is,
it could be.
like, we all build things, and once you build them, you think, oh, I wish I had done X. But I'm concerned that it could keep, each one of these
Yeah.
could keep morphing as we go. And so I wanted to understand how this morph happened.
That's how it happened. And
It's a modification. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody can come in and modify any DRI they want.
You see it all the time.
Yeah.
Linda,
Of course, there are many
your
modifications.
turn, Linda.
Hi, I want to go back to the issue of the
well, it's a
letter.
big project.
Can I go? Are you through, Sam?
Yeah, it's your turn. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Technically now, we are trying to decide whether we need a public hearing. And I'm a little concerned about the letter from the Stams. Is there another letter from another neighbor? Question.
There is, what, there's a letter from Ryder's attorney dated January the 14th that we had, it's posted, isn't it, Rich?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah,
For the record.
it's all in the record.
Well, but I
The
want to go
the
back
new
to
letter arrived today at 5:52.
Yeah.
saying it's okay. Is there another neighbor is my question. Is there? Hello?
There's the riders and the stands. That's it.
Oh, okay, okay. So there are two letters. Or two people, two neighbors. I would like to go back to what Ben
Right.
said. I do not believe that we can look at those letters unless we hold a public hearing, because those are public hearing inputs. When we find that there isn't a need for a public hearing, it is saying we find that we can make a decision on this without public input. That means we would have to ignore the letters. I'm quite sure of that if you think about it. They're the public. We can't take input from the public unless we have a public hearing.
It's preferential to certain aspects of the public.
It is.
So,
Yes, it would have to be the whole
But,
public would
okay,
have
let's
to
just
be.
look at it on the merits.
Okay,
He's got his hand up.
And
Let's just-
understand, but this,
We'll look at it on the merits. Of just what has been proposed and whether it has sufficient regional impact.
and Mike,
Michael again, go ahead.
Is there any zoning
ahead,
issue
Michael.
or would this design be as of right?
As a matter of right?
Are there any zoning
I'm sorry.
issues for this
Is that
proposal?
the question?
Yeah,
Yes.
No, the footprint does not, this space is already actual space. It's just it just doesn't have any windows in
You
it.
may need to modify the special permit from the planning board because it is an exterior alteration.
Okay.
So there may be a requirement to modify a special permit.
Did Ben say before that there was a
Could I
height,
check?
a height issue?
No, there's no height issue. He's not increasing the height. But he is altering the exterior appearance of the building because there was a special permit granted for the whole complex. That may require a modification. I haven't looked into that in detail.
I'd just like to pass this drawing around, which I pressed past onto the Ryder's property and took this picture from their
Oh, man,
porch.
you're on the record now.
And I put a little red blob on the affected area. This is their sweeping view. And
Yes.
that's what lawyers are writing letters about.
Go ahead, Rich.
I just want to clarify the scope of this addition because staff went onto the second floor of that condo and looked at a closet on the second floor. So is there anything that's going to occur on the second floor of the building or the second floor?
No,
Okay.
you showed a picture of the second floor before you showed a picture of the third.
Right.
Just a quick question to clarify this. This is a picture of the modification.
No, that little red blob is a picture of the extent of the modification in the big scheme of things.
Okay,
Could you pass that around?
sure. I just want to clarify.
Yeah, where this would fall in the category of what Linda said we shouldn't be looking at. I just want to understand one thing, regardless of what input we've had from the neighbors, your current proposal is the one that you worked out with North Alabama. That's what you're asking us to approve. It's a modification.
Yeah.
Shown on your second elevation and with the louvers on the adjoining window.
Yes.
Okay, so that if we find that there's not a regional impact and we approve it, that's what you're gonna do. And anyone who feels they're affected would be able to rely on that.
Absolutely.
Okay, just want to make it clear, that's all.
right.
Brian, go ahead.
Doing good. I'm trying to raise my hand. It's not easy. So although this project was something that had regional impact, I feel as though this modification does not have any kind of regional impact. If it's done, nobody that I know will ever notice it. No one that I've ever met will notice it. No one that ever comes into the harbor will notice it. I don't think any one of us will ever hear from anyone till the end of time that notices it or cares about it. I'd like to make a motion that we do not take this on as a for a public hearing.
You're moving,
That we do not.
does not have sufficient regional impact to require public hearing. That's been seconded. Yes, Kate.
I want to follow up on something you said, Doug.
Yep.
If we were to endorse this motion, would there be any ability to enforce the representations that Sam has made about what he's doing?
If they're offers.
Well, if Sam is proposing to do X, if we approve that, then we're modifying the DRI to let him do it. Therefore, he has to comply with the DRI, which is he has to do what he said he was gonna do.
Right.
Yes, so yes, I think we
Okay,
could, I
but-
think we could enforce that.
That's just
Is
proposal.
my limited observation of this project, which I wasn't there for the beginning, I've noticed that somehow modifications have crept in that never been approved to begin with, and we were forced into a position of dealing with that. And so I am a little bit concerned that that could happen again, and I want to understand what it is that we can do to make sure that the representations that are being made are in fact what will happen this time.
But this modification is the only thing that is in front of us. Past modifications or potential future modifications are in front of us.
I understand that, but I also have to look at the pattern of behavior.
Then next time it comes to a modification, address it.
Well, that would be today, after doing things before that happened after the fact.
He's not asking for any after the fact modification approval now.
That's
He's coming to us and saying, what they want to do in the future. And
And I
That's
want
it.
to point out that there are 7 buildings in this project and thousands of design decisions all over it. And, you know, given the complexity of this, the fact that we've had new uses put into several of the buildings, there've been a lot of modifications. It's just, you know, these are the way the rules are, and this is. I mean,
I believe that given that he's been very specific about what he wants to do. And that's what, if we approve this, is going to be in the letter back to him saying it's been approved. I'm not concerned about this particular. What happens, what's happened in the past, what may happen in the future, we'll deal with as we deal with it. This is all this before us. Any other comments? Go ahead, Ben.
I differ with what Kate, you said. I don't think we should or are allowed to judge this based on any past project modification or future. Really have to just look at this as an individual. As much as there is a track record, we have to devoid ourselves from that track record being part of our decision making.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to say, but I was much less articulate. You know?
I would just note, there is a narrative that you just have to follow. It talks about the northeast corner, the closet, there is specific enough.
Anything further?
Yes. Yes,
Go ahead, Linda.
yes, I'd like to move that we require a public hearing. Because I think that the public, which.
There's already a-
There's already a motion that,
There is a motion?
Well,
Was
no,
there a
sorry, but there's
motion?
already a motion. There's a motion and a second already on the
I missed that?
motion not to require a
Okay,
hearing. That's,
okay. Well,
that
I want to
motion
say
and second
then,
is on the floor.
okay, then I want to say with regard to the motion that I disagree with it because I think there is a quote, public interest. And it's not, I don't know how to put it, but let's say that this had been the original design and the neighbors had said, well, we have an objection because that violates our privacy, then the public at large and we would have been able to consider that. And I'm bothered by the fact that we can't consider that one way or another if we don't have a public hearing.
Call the vote?
Michael, can
There's two more on this. One more first. Michael, go ahead.
Okay, it seems that there are at least one abutter, or there is at least one abutter who is not completely satisfied. That venue, I think should be local because the actual impact of these windows is not regional, it is local. The opinion that the town's board is not fully capable of enforcing this has been raised before, but I'm uncomfortable with taking that territory. I believe this project should be reviewed by the proper authority. Unfortunately, I don't think it's us.
All right,
We have a.
let's move on.
Yeah,
I think.
You want
I
to
think
vote?
Brian made the motion, Greg seconded it. Ready?
So a yes vote is that there will not be a public hearing.
Right. Yes vote is not to conduct a public hearing, correct?
May I say
Right,
one
Jeff
thing?
Agnoli.
But wait, may I say something first, please?
I thought you already had. Go
No,
ahead.
this is a different matter. This is to Michael Kim.
Go ahead.
What I want to say is it is appropriate because we are being asked to change our condition. And that is something that only we can do. And I feel we shouldn't make that decision without a public hearing. That's all.
Yes.
Come on.
Jeff Agnoli votes yes. Bernadette.
Yes.
Deb votes yes. Mark.
Yes.
Mark votes yes. Jay.
Yes.
Jay votes yes. Michael.
Sorry, does yes mean no again?
Which Michael?
Michael.
Yeah.
Kim.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes means
Yes
no
means
public
no?
hearing.
Okay, yes.
Sorry. I'm not muted anymore.
Willa Cool, I'll use.
Yes. Can you hear me? Yes.
Willa Cool votes yes. Yep, we got your vote. Mike Mackin.
Yes.
McEnany votes yes. Greg Martino.
Yes.
Martino votes yes. Kathy Newman.
Unenthusiastic, yes.
Kathy.
Can you not hear me?
I didn't get that.
Yes.
I said yes.
We can hear
I
you.
got you, I
Thank
got
you.
you. Kate Putnam.
No.
Kate Putnam. Ben Robinson. Yes. Ben Robinson votes yes. Doug Cedarholm.
Yes.
Linda Sibley.
No,
Linda Sibley votes no. Brian Smith.
Yes.
Ernie Thomas.
Yes.
Ernie Thomas votes yes. Jeanette Vanderhoop.
Yes.
Jeanette Vanderhoop.
Yes.
Jeanette votes yes. Peter Ward.
Yes.
Motion carries. We go to the second phase of whether we approve.
Someone want to make a motion to approve or deny this?
I'll make a motion to approve this modification.
I'll second.
And who seconded it?
Do we have in writing the interior shutters and the detail for that and the revised?
Actually, the Stams and I agreed to, once it's built, to look at it and to see what angle to put them at and all that.
Can we get that in writing as an offer? Because we're not gonna be, we can't condition it, so we.
Okay,
you've
why
gotta-
don't we,
you've
the
gotta put
best
in
way to
writing.
do it would be, Richard, why don't you send an email to Sam that confirms that this is the proposal. Okay, if you've got any question, you can run it by me before you send it to him. And then Sam will write back, yes, this is the proposal. That way we'll have the record.
And we'll wait to vote on it until after we get that.
Well, I think we
information.
can rely on what was said tonight. I mean, I think we can.
I mean, I think we've done Sam a favor in not having a public hearing. But I would like to be able to look at a document that says exactly what we're approving, because we can't condition it. Just so that everybody is going to be satisfied, especially the Stams, if there's something that they're agreeing to.
I will write this,
When you write it down now.
I'll write it right now. The back of this.
Okay, go ahead.
Not in the picture though.
You can deny later, he was not in.
The riders aren't on.
The what?
The riders are not on.
Sam, when you're done, give that to Peter. So record.
I don't.
Video record.
Who am I giving it to?
Peter.
Peter Warden?
Yeah.
Okay. Peter Sands, Peter Warden.
And I hope I can read it.
I'll read it into the record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does make the narrative, the architecture and material makeup of the dormers replicates existing. Is that good enough for exterior in terms of materials?
Not really, because they plastic all over this project. But
Yeah.
it's there.
At least it's consistent.
Or flip that one.
Yeah, push the bench.
Need the bailiff.
All right. Written by Sam Dunn this evening on the 23rd, submitted at 9:21. I hereby agree to meet with the dams following demolitions and set the angle of the louvers to go inside window number 2. Signed by Sam Dunn.
And window number 2 would be the window on the east elevation, the only window that's directly out on the east elevation, because you're eliminating window number 1.
We,
Existing dormer room.
Sam, could you add to that, that the stamp report to the executive director of the MVC satisfaction in the solution before we release?
Sure.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Just allow, he's agreeing to talk to the Stams about a solution. I would like the Stams to be able to say, we've agreed on a solution and report that to us.
Okay. You okay with that?
And we have a record of this, it'll be in the minutes.
I can testify that Peter Sam is not a shrinking violet.
We've noticed. We appreciate members of the public who are interested in our proceeding.
All right, I will get that edit written.
So is there a motion to approve or disapprove?
Yeah, they're already.
Okay, they're already.
Greg is.
Yep.
Who made the motion?
Greg
did the
made the
motion?
motion, Greg made the motion,
I
Brian
second.
seconded it.
Okay,
This is to approve
yes.
it. Jeff Egnell,
Yes.
Burnett Clark. Mark Hoppy,
Yes.
Jay Gross,
Yes.
Nicole Kim,
Michael?
Michael,
Thumbs down.
He's saying yes, but it's
Yes.
muted.
You did, yes.
Willow Cole. Willow, thumbs up, thumbs down. You approve it? He's muted.
And video off.
Will no vote?
All right, well, we'll move on. Mike McIndy,
Yes.
Greg Martino.
Yes.
Kathy Newman,
Yes,
Kathy,
yes,
okay,
Could do something
Kate
about-
Putnam,
something.
Yes.
Ben Robinson. I got you, Kathy. Thank you. You said yes, Ben? I'm sorry. Didn't hear. Doug Cedarholm.
Yeah.
Linda Sibley,
Yes.
Linda Sibley votes yes. Brian Smith,
Yes.
Attorney Thomas,
Yes.
Jeanette Vanderhook,
Yes.
Jeanette,
Yes.
Jeanette votes yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's try Willico again. Thumbs up or thumbs down? I can see you, so.
I can see a picture of it.
Yes.
No, she's
No,
not there.
yeah, she's not there.
Maybe she is. She's
Jeanette.
coming.
All right. Mr. Jefferson.
All right. I think we've concluded our business for the evening.
5 minutes to
Thank you very much,
spare.
everybody.
Thank you.
Four to-